Picture yourself in a 16th century London apothecary shop, the air thick with the stench of mildew, and something worse. Something that clings to your nostrils like a bad decision. The shelves groan under jars of leeches dried herbs, and oh yes, a dusty little vial labelled mummy powder. That's right, in Renaissance Europe, they didn't just bury the dead, they ground them up and sold them as medicine. Welcome to the corpse trade, where death was just another ingredient, and your local apothecary was part pharmacist, part grave-robbing entrepreneur. Imagine the scene: a wooden counter stained with who knows what and a mortar, where the apothecary's pestle grinds away, turning bone into a gritty paste. It's not oatmeal friend, it's someone's skull, probably pilfered from an Egyptian tomb or a fresh gallows drop. You'd think they'd at least wash it first, but hygiene was more of a suggestion back then. This wasn't some back-alley quackery, this was high-end stuff. The rich and desperate, your lords, your ladies, maybe even your neighbour with a persistent cough queued up to buy this cure. Mummy powder, they swore, could fix epilepsy bruises or a bad day at the joust. The logic corpses, especially ancient ones, had some mystical life force like a Renaissance energy drink, but with more eternal vibes. Never mind that the mummy was often just some poor sod executed last week, rebranded as exotic. The apothecary with his stained apron and shifty eyes would sprinkle this dust into a tonic, charging a fortune, while muttering about vital spirits. You'd sip it, gag on the chalky aftertaste, and pray it wasn't cursed. Spoiler, it probably was. The shop's dim lit by flickering candles that cast shadows on jars labelled in Latin, because nothing says trust me like a dead language. The air's heavy with the tang of decay, musked by a sad attempt at lavender. Customers whisper, half ashamed, as they ask for the good stuff, human fat maybe, or a pinch of powdered skull. The apothecary doesn't blink. He's seen worse. He's got a side hustle selling to alchemists chasing immortality, and they're not picky about where the bones come from. You catch a whiff of something metallic like blood, and wonder if it's from the jar or the guy next to you coughing up his soul. This is the Renaissance baby rebirth art and a side of cannibalism for the cultured elite. Step outside to a 17th century execution square where the crowd's buzzing like it's Black Friday at a guillotine sale. The gallows loom rope creaking in the wind and the executioner's sharpening his axe like he's prepping for a BBQ. But this isn't just a public spectacle, it's a supply chain kickoff. In Renaissance Europe, a good beheading wasn't just justice, it was inventory day for the corpse trade. The condemned, some poor thief or heretic, dangles lifeless, and before the ravens can swoop, the executioner's already got buyers. Apothecaries, surgeons, even shady merchants, they're all here, haggling over the body like it's a used car. Fresh corpse prime cut. That blood still warm, perfect for a noble's vitality tonic. The crowd doesn't blink at this. They're too busy jeering, tossing rotten fruit, or betting on how many swings it'll take to lop off a head. But you notice the executioner's side glance his hand slipping coins to a cloaked figure. That's the body broker ready to cart the corpse to an apothecary's back room. By dawn, that thief's skull will be ground into powder, his fat melted into a salve for some lord's gout. It's a grim gig economy, think Uber, but for body parts. The executioner's not just a headsman, he's a supplier in a market where death pays better than life. You smell the iron tang of blood, hear the crowd's roar fade as the cart creaks away loaded with what's left of a man. Historical fun fact, this wasn't rare. In England and Germany, execution sites were basically corpse farms feeding a demand for medicinal remains. The fresher the better, because nothing says health like blood collected mid-execution rite. The church frowned but didn't stop it. Priests needed those apothecary discounts too. You're in a bustling 16th century Venetian port where the air's a cocktail of salt sweat and something faintly rotten. Crates creak open under torchlight, revealing not spices or silk, but desiccated bodies swaddled in crumbling linen, Egyptian mummies looted from ancient tombs to feed Europe's corpse craze. Welcome to the mummy market Renaissance style, where colonial greed turned sacred graves into a Walmart for miracle cures. Merchants in velvet cloaks haggle like it's a flea market, tossing around terms like prime mummy, while dockhands pry open sarcophagi, their noses wrinkling at the dusty stench. You'd think stealing the dead would come with a curse, but these guys are too busy counting coins to care. This wasn't niche, it was an industry. By the 1500s, Europe's apothecaries couldn't get enough mummy powder, ground up remains, peddled as a cure for everything from fever to a bad hair day. Egypt's tombs packed with preserved pharaohs and priests were a gold mine, and European explorers raided them with zero chill. The math was simple: one mummy equals a fortune in powdered immortality. Never mind that half the stock was fake local hustlers in Cairo, churned out mummies from fresh corpses sun-baked and wrapped for authenticity. You're dodging crates stamped with foreign glyphs, the air gritty with sand and decay as a merchant boasts about his royal haul. Royal sure, if royalty means some poor soul dragged from a crypt. The scene's a grotesque parody of trade. Ships groan under the weight of death, their holds stuffed with bodies older than Christ, while buyers sniff the goods like they're sampling wine. Aged to perfection, one smirks, crumbling a bit of linen that smells like a crypt's bad breath. You gag, but the crowd's unfazed. They're here for the promise of health, not ethics. This is the Renaissance, where progress meant art science and strip mining the dead for snake oil. Somewhere an Egyptian priest ghost is screaming, but these merchants, they're dreaming of manor houses. Imagine a 17th century English manor candlelight flickering on gilded walls, where lords and ladies clink goblets filled with blood. Not wine, not ale, but actual human blood, sipped like it's the Renaissance equivalent of a protein shake. This is Blood Tonic Night, where Europe's elite chased vitality by drinking the dead, convinced it'd keep them spry till kingdom come. The corpse trade wasn't just for apothecaries. It was high society's dirty secret, a grotesque flex of wealth and desperation. You're at the table, the metallic tang hitting your nose, and you're wondering if this is a dinner party or a vampire audition. Historically, this was peak cannibal chic. Physicians swore blood fresh from executions or harvested from the poor carried life essence perfect for curing weakness or dodgy humours. The elite didn't flinch. They paid top coin for vials collected at the gallows still warm, because nothing says luxury like a fresh beheading. The host, some powdered duke, raises his glass, toasting eternal health, with a smirk while a servant refills from a silver pitcher that reeks of iron. You catch the glint of unease in a lady's eye, but she drinks anyway. Peer pressure's a beast even in 1660. The room's warm, too warm with velvet curtains, trapping the scent of blood and wax. It's absurd, yet they believed it. Think of it as a twisted TikTok trend blood cleanse Renaissance edition. The table's littered with empty goblets stained red as guests murmur about vigour like they're hyping a new diet. Outside, the poor are buried in unmarked graves, their blood now a noble's nightcap. You want to scream, this is how you get cursed, but they're too busy planning the next execution to attend. You're in a dimly lit 16th century physician's chamber where the air smells like old books and older sins. On a cluttered desk sits a vial of greyish dust labelled with the kind of Latin that screams, "Trust me, I'm science." That skull powder friend ground from some poor soul's cranium prescribed like it's Tylenol for the Renaissance set. In this era, doctors weren't just healers, they were corpse connoisseurs, doling out human remains to fix your gout, your fever, or your existential dread. You watch a patient pale and twitchy clutch the vial like it's a winning lottery ticket, while the physician mutters about vital essences. Vital. Sure, if you ignore the part where it's literally death in a bottle. This was no fringe nonsense. By the 1500s, skull powder was a staple in European medicine, especially in England and Germany, where apothecaries swore it could cure epilepsy or mend a broken spirit. The fresher the skull, the better think farm to table, but for executed criminals or battlefield leftovers. The patient before you, some merchant with a cough, grimaces as he sprinkles the dust into his ale, the gritty texture catching in his throat. You smell the faint chalk of bone mixed with the sour tang of desperation. The physician in his velvet robe looks smug, like he's cracked the code to immortality. Spoiler, he hasn't. Half the time the skull is just chalk or worse and the patient still coughing by sundown. The room's heavy with delusion candlelight flickering on shelves of jars, some holding herbs, others questionable bits. The merchant downs his dose wincing while you wonder if he knows where it came from. Probably some thief who swung at the gallows last week, now a miracle cure for the low, low price of your dignity. This is the Renaissance, where science and superstition had a love child and it was weaned on corpse dust. It's midnight in a 17th century churchyard where the moon's your only witness and the air's thick with damp earth and dread. You're tailing a grave robber, a wiry figure in a tattered cloak, his shovel biting into the soil like it's personal. This isn't just crime, it's the corpse trade's supply chain feeding Europe's hunger for medicinal bodies. In the Renaissance, grave robbing wasn't a side hustle, it was a career dodging watchmen and curses to unearth fresh corpses for apothecaries. You hear the crunch of dirt, the creak of a coffin lid, and the robbers' muttered prayers not for the dead but for not getting caught. The demand was insatiable. Apothecaries needed bodies for mummy powder, surgeons craved cadavers for dissection, and alchemists wanted bones for their immortality scams. This guy's no amateur. He knows the best graves, fresh burials, unmarked, easy to crack open. The stench hits you first, a sour mix of rot and wet wood, as he hauls out a shrouded body, its face slack under moonlight. He's quick tying it to a cart, eyes darting for patrolmen. One wrong move and it's the gallows for him. Ironic, since that's where half his product ends up anyway. You catch the glint of a coin in his pocket, payment, from some backroom broker who'll turn this corpse into a noble's cure. The churchyard's silent, save for the distant howl of a dog, and you're wondering if it's haunted or just your nerves. This was business as usual, London, Paris, Venice, all crawling with grave robbers feeding the corpse market. The church turned a blind eye. They needed those apothecary tithes. You watch him vanish into the fog, dragging death behind him, and think this is the Renaissance where progress meant digging up the dead to sell hope? Drop a like if you're glad grave robbing's not on your resume, and tell us, would you dig for a paycheck? You're at a 17th century French chateau where chandeliers glitter and the air's thick with perfume, barely masking a rancid undertone. The elite are gathered, their silk gloves hiding greedy hands, as servants set out platters not of pheasant but of something far grimier, human fat, rendered into a healing salve for the Renaissance's 1%ers. This isn't just dinner, it's a cannibalistic flex proof. You could afford to smear a dead man's essence on your skin to chase youth. The corpse trade turned Europe's nobles into unwitting ghouls, dining on death like it's a Michelin-starred delicacy. You catch the greasy sheen of the salve smelling like a butcher's shop gone wrong, and wonder if anyone here feels the irony. By the 1600s, human fat was the ultimate status symbol prescribed for everything from arthritis to fading beauty. Apothecaries sourced it from executions. Think guillotine leftovers melted down like candle wax. The hostess, a duchess with a powdered face, dabs the stuff on her wrists, cooing about vitality like it's a new skincare line. You smell the oily rot, see a guest flinch as he spreads it on his knuckles, yet they all nod, pretending this is normal. It's not. It's a grotesque pageant, where wealth buys you the right to rub corpse grease on your aches, while the poor whose bodies supplied it rot in unmarked graves. The room's opulent, all velvet and gold, but the vibe's pure horror show like a vampire ball with better table manners. This was peak Renaissance decadence progress art and a side of human-flavoured luxury. The church shrugged. They got their cut from apothecary tithes. You watch a lord smear fat on his brow, muttering about eternal vigour, and think this is just goop for the plague era, but with actual corpses. The candles flicker, casting shadows that look too much like the dead, and you're half expecting a curse to crash the party. You're on a moonless night in 16th century Italy, trailing a rickety cart that creaks under a tarp-covered load. The driver, a smuggler with eyes like a cornered rat, grips the reins, dodging border guards who'd hang him for what's in the back corpses bound for apothecaries across Europe. This is the corpse trade's underbelly, where bodies are trafficked like contraband wine, fueling the Renaissance obsession with medicinal remains. You hear the cart's wheels groan, smell the sour rot seeping through the tarp, and feel the tension as lanterns flicker in the distance. One wrong move, and this smuggler's a dead man himself, ironic given his cargo. The trade was a shadowy empire. By the 1500s, demand for mummy powder and human fat outstripped local supplies, so smugglers hauled bodies from war zones, plague pits even stolen from foreign graves. This guy's headed for Venice, where apothecaries pay gold for fresh stock. He whispers to his horse, urging speed as the stench of decay betrays him to the night air. You see a sack shift, a lifeless hand slipping free, and your stomach lurches. These aren't just bodies, they're profit ground into cures for nobles who think death's a cheat code. The smuggler's no monster, just a man with bills, but he knows the guards won't care about his sob story. The road's quiet, save for the cart's rattle and the occasional wolf howl making you wonder if curses are real. This was business as usual, corpses crossed borders faster than spices, all to feed Europe's grim pharmacy. You're half tempted to shout a warning, but the smuggler's already gone vanishing into the fog with his rotting gold. You're in a 16th century alchemist's lair, where the air is a choking mix of sulphur smoke and something that smells like regret. Flickering lanterns cast shadows on shelves crammed with vials, skulls, and a bubbling cauldron that's definitely not cooking soup. This is the Renaissance's mad scientist central, where alchemists chased immortality by brewing potions from corpse bits, because nothing screams eternal life like a dead guy's femur. The alchemist, wild-eyed and sporting a beard that's seen better days, stirs a murky sludge, muttering about elixir vitae. You're pretty sure it's just grave dirt and desperation, but he's all in like a startup bro hyping a doomed crypto scheme. This wasn't fringe. Alchemy was the TED Talk of the 1500s, blending science mysticism and a creepy corpse fetish. Alchemists believed human remains, bones, blood, even hair held the key to defying death. They'd pay smugglers top coin for fresh bodies, grinding them into potions that promised to turn lords into Methuselahs. You watch the alchemist add a pinch of mummy powder, the gritty dust swirling in the brew like a macabre latte art. The stench hits you, rotten meat meets burnt hair, and you gag, but he's too lost in his mania to notice. His notes scrawled in frantic Latin talk of transmutation, but the only thing transforming here is his sanity. The room's a fever dream. Cracked alembics, a skeleton dangling like a grim wind chime, and a flickering candle that's one spark away from disaster. Historically, these guys were backed by nobles desperate for a fountain of youth, bankrolling corpse raids across Europe. The alchemist's hands shake as he sips his latest batch, eyes gleaming with hope or madness. Spoiler, it doesn't work. Most are broke, poisoned by their own brews. You're tempted to yell, "Stick to gold, dude," but he's already coughing, blaming the stars. You're skulking through a 17th century English churchyard where gravestones lean like drunken sentinels under a sickly moon. A spade bites into hallowed ground, dirt flying as a shadowy figure unearths a fresh coffin, because sacred meant squat when the corpse trade was booming. In Renaissance Europe, churchyards weren't just for prayers, they were body farms for apothecaries and the clergy, often in on the deal, pocketing coins while preaching eternal rest. You hear the thief's grunt, the wood splintering, and smell the damp rot of betrayal thicker than the fog curling around the crosses. This was grimly routine. By the 1600s, the demand for corpse medicine, mummy powder, human fat turned holy ground into a free-for-all. Grave robbers supplied apothecaries who supplied nobles, and some priests played middleman, trading salvation for silence. You see the robber pry open the coffin, revealing a shrouded body, its face pale as the moon. He's quick slinging it over his shoulder, but pauses. Did he hear a watchman? Nope, just guilt, or maybe the wind mocking his hustle. The church's steeple looms a hypocritical finger pointing skyward, while its keepers cash in on the dead. Historically, parish records hint at missing bodies, with clergy blaming vandals while buying new robes. The air's heavy with earth and sin, the robber's lantern casting ghoulish shadows. You're half expecting a divine smite, but the heavens stay silent. Turns out even God's got bills. The body's carted off to become some lord's cure, while the grave gapes like a broken promise. This is the Renaissance, where faith and filth shared a bed and the corpse trade was just business. You're standing in a 17th century German town square, the crowd roaring like it's a twisted Renaissance tailgate. The gallows creak rope taut as the hangman, a hulking figure with a hood that hides everything but his greed, drops another soul into eternity. This isn't just justice, it's the corpse trade's cash cow, where the hangman doubles as a body broker, selling fresh corpses to apothecaries faster than you can say last rites. In Renaissance Europe, executions were like pop-up shops for medicinal remains, and the hangman, he's the guy with the VIP pass pocketing coins while the crowd bets on the condemned's final twitch. You hear the rope snap tight, smell the fear-soaked sweat, and catch the glint of silver changing hands. This was no side gig. Hangmen were key players in the corpse market. By the 1600s, a good execution could supply skull powder or blood for cures that nobles swore by for their aches and agues. The hangman doesn't flinch as he cuts down the body still warm and hands it to a cloaked apothecary's agent waiting in the shadows. The crowd's too busy jeering to notice their cheers, drowning out the cart's creak as it hauls the corpse to a backroom grinder. You see the hangman count his coins, his hand stained with more than just rope burn, and think this guy's the Renaissance equivalent of a shady eBay seller, but with higher stakes and worse hygiene. The square reeks of spilled ale and blood, the air heavy with the mob's morbid glee. Historically, hangmen across Europe cashed in their product, fueling a demand for corpse medicine that outstripped graves. The church muttered about sanctity, but didn't stop the trade, those tithes were too sweet. You watch the hangman lumber off probably to the tavern, while the crowd disperses, leaving a stain on the cobblestones. This is the Renaissance, where death was just another hustle. You're weaving through a 16th century London market where stalls hawk everything from fish to fake miracles. Amid the chaos, a slick vendor waves a vial of genuine mummy powder, swearing it's straight from an Egyptian pharaoh's tomb. Spoiler. It's probably just ground up dirt, or worse, some local stiff passed off as exotic. Welcome to the mummy powder scandals, where Renaissance Europe's corpse trade hit peak scam, fleecing desperate buyers with counterfeit cures. The air's thick with the tang of spices and lies as merchants peddle immortality to gullible lords and ladies who think a spoonful of dust will fix their gout. You dodge a pickpocket and gag at the musty whiff from an open vial. This was fraud central. By the 1500s, the craze for mummy powder, supposedly ancient Egyptian remains, outstripped supply, so hustlers got creative grinding anything from animal bones to fresh corpses and calling it mummia. Buyers didn't blink. They were too busy chasing health hacks, Renaissance style. You see a merchant all charm and crooked teeth spin tales of desert crypts while selling chalky fakes to a starry-eyed noble. The crowd buzzes, half believing, half desperate, as coins change hands faster than you can say snake oil. Historically, these scams flooded markets from Venice to London, with apothecaries winking at the fraud profit trumped truth every time. The stall's a mess of jars and tattered linens meant to look authentic, but the stench screams fresh fraud. You hear a buyer cough clutching his cure and wonder if he'll notice it's just dirt before he's 6 feet under. This is the Renaissance, where hope was as fake as the mummies and scams were just good business. You're in a 17th century hospital ward, where the air's a suffocating blend of pus herbs and despair. Lepers, their skin flaking like old parchment, lie on straw pallets clutching at hope as a physician offers a jar of greasy salve human fat, harvested from the freshly dead sold as a cure for their rotting flesh. Welcome to the corpse trade's grim underbelly, where Renaissance Europe turned executed bodies into ointments for the diseased. You smell the rancid tang of the salve, see a patient's trembling hand smear it on oozing sores, and wonder if this is medicine or madness. The physician with his smug Latin mutterings calls it vital balm. Spoiler, it's just corpse grease, and it's about as healing as a paper towel. This wasn't quackery, it was mainstream. By the 1600s, human fat was a go-to for leprosy, believed to draw out disease like some gruesome skincare routine. Executioners melted down the stuff post-beheading, selling it to apothecaries who marked it up for desperate souls. You watch a leper wince, the salve stinging like betrayal, while the ward's shadows flicker with candlelight, casting skeletal shapes on damp walls. The physician pockets his fee unmoved as patients pray for miracles that never come. Historically, leprosy wards were dumping grounds for society's outcasts, and corpse medicine was their last futile hope, the church. They shrugged, too busy with tithes to care about ethics. The room's a tableau of suffering moans, clinking coins, the faint drip of blood from a nearby surgical table. You're half expecting a curse to crawl out of that jar, but the only curse here is desperation. This is the Renaissance, where science and superstition danced a grotesque waltz, and the dead were just another prescription. You're at a 16th century execution block in Paris, where the crowd's hush is louder than their jeers. The axe falls, a head rolls, and before the blood pools, a cloaked figure darts forward with a vial catching crimson drops like it's holy water. This is the corpse trade's ritual hour, where Renaissance executioners didn't just kill, they harvested, collecting blood for apothecaries who'd sell it as vitality tonic. The air's thick with iron and fear, the cobblestones slick underfoot, and you feel the crowd's solemn gaze, half horrified, half reverent. Timing's everything 1 second too late and the blood's tainted. You see the collector's hands shake vial, glinting in torchlight, as he bottles life's last gasp. This was no myth. Blood collection was a grim art. In the 1500s, fresh blood from executions was prized for its life force, used to treat everything from seizures to melancholy. The executioner, part butcher, part entrepreneur, ensured a steady flow to apothecaries who'd mix it into elixirs for nobles chasing health. You hear the drip of blood into glass, see the crowd part for the collector's hasty exit, his cloak stained red. Historically, these rituals fed Europe's corpse medicine craze, with execution sites doubling as harvest grounds. The church muttered about sacrilege, but took their cut as always. The block's empty now, save for a stain no one bothers to clean. The scene's a grim ballet, solemn onlookers, a priest's half-hearted prayer, the collector's darting eyes. You're wondering if the dead man knew his blood would outlive him, bottled for some lord's breakfast. This is the Renaissance, where death was a transaction, and hope came with a body count. You're in a 16th century backroom in Amsterdam, where the air's a sour mix of ink, sweat, and moral rot. A body broker hunched over a desk like a vulture scratches numbers into a ledger, tallying his latest haul of corpses for the Renaissance corpse trade. Each line's a life-hanged thief plague victim, smuggled mummy reduced to profit margins for apothecaries hungry for medicinal remains. This guy's the grim middleman of Europe's death market, orchestrating a supply chain that'd make modern logistics blush. You see the ledger's pages stained with grease and guilt, and smell the faint decay clinging to his cloak, fresh from a graveyard deal. This wasn't petty crime, it was a full-blown enterprise. By the 1500s, the demand for corpse medicine skull powder, human fat, created a network of brokers who coordinated with hangmen smugglers and even crooked priests. The brokers quill scratches, noting 3 fresh gallows sourced. For a Venetian apothecary, his handwriting as cold as the bodies he trades. You catch a glimpse of his calculations, a noble's vitality tonic pays 10 times a labourer's wage. He doesn't flinch, just sips his ale, the candlelight glinting off coins stacked like tiny tombstones. Historically, these ledgers existed hidden in attics, proof of a market where death was currency and ethics were optional. The room's a crypt of ambition, dusty shelves, a locked chest of gold, the faint creak of a cart outside delivering stock. You're half expecting a ghost to audit his books, but the only haunt here is greed. This is the Renaissance, where progress meant turning graves into gold mines, and brokers like this guy kept the gears turning. You're deep in a 16th century Egyptian crypt where the air's thick with dust and the kind of dread that makes your skin crawl. A tomb raider, torch in hand, chisels at a sarcophagus, looting mummies for Europe's corpse trade, where they'll be ground into healing powder for Renaissance nobles. The walls hum with ancient glyphs, whispering curses you can't quite hear, but the raider's too greedy to care, prying open the stone with a grunt. You smell the dry rot of linen, see shadows dance like angry spirits, and feel the weight of 1,000 years pressing down. This isn't adventure, it's desecration fueled by a market that turns sacred dead into snake oil. By the 1500s, Egypt's tombs were a free-for-all raided by European entrepreneurs to feed the mummy powder craze. These raiders faced traps, bandits, and local wrath, but the payout was worth it. A single mummy could buy a house. You watch the raider unwrap a body, its face crumbling to dust, and hear his nervous laugh, half bravado, half fear of the curse locals swear by. The torch flickers, casting eerie shapes, and you're wondering if that's wind or something older, angrier. Historically, tomb raiding fueled Europe's corpse medicine, with ships hauling mummies like cargo, while tales of curses, disease, madness dogged the raiders. Spoiler, many didn't live long enough to spend their gold. The crypt's a maze of shadows littered with shattered pottery and bones, the air gritty with ancient decay. You're half expecting a spectral hand to grab the raider, but the only curse here is his own greed. This is the Renaissance, where progress meant looting eternity for a quick fix. You're in a 17th century plague-ravaged London where the air's a choking stew of rot, smoke and panic. Mass graves yawn open, piled with bodies, but some aren't destined for rest. They're fodder for the corpse trade snatched by frantic apothecaries to feed Europe's hunger for medicinal remains. During the Black Death's grip, desperation turned corpses into cures with bones ground into powder and blood bottled as elixirs. You see a cloaked figure, an apothecary's lackey, dart through the fog, prying a fresh body from a pit, his hands trembling as cries of "Bring out your dead" echo. The stench hits you, death layered on death, with a whiff of burnt herbs trying to mask it. This was peak corpse chaos. By the 1660s, plague pits overflowed and apothecaries saw opportunity harvesting bodies for mummy powder or fat salves to ward off the very disease that killed them. You watch the lackey stuff a corpse into a sack, his breath ragged, knowing one wrong move means a mob or the plague itself. The streets are nightmare. Carts creak with bodies, survivors wail, and the apothecary's shop glows faintly, its shelves lined with jars of grim hope. Historically, plague times amped up the corpse trade, as fear drove even skeptics to try death-dusted remedies. The church too busy, praying to notice the body snatchers or their tithes. The scene's a grim carnival. Flies buzz a bell tolls and the lackey vanishes into the mist, his sack leaking something dark. You're wondering if this cure is just the plague's sick encore, but desperation doesn't ask questions. This is the Renaissance, where survival meant scavenging the dead for a shot at tomorrow. You're at a 16th century Italian palazzo, where candlelight dances on gold-trimmed walls, and nobles in velvet sip from goblets that don't hold wine. Welcome to a cannibal feast Renaissance style, where the elite dine on corpse-derived medicines, think human fat salves and skull powder sprinkled like seasoning. The corpse trade turned high society into unwitting ghouls hosting banquets where death was the main course dressed up as health. You smell the greasy tang of human fat, see a lord spread it on bread like it's artisanal butter, and catch the uneasy glances of guests pretending this is fine dining. It's not. It's a grotesque flex like throwing a vegan potluck with bacon. By the 1500s, corpse medicine was haute cuisine for Europe's rich, who believed human remains sourced from executions or smuggled graves could cure anything from wrinkles to plague. The host, a smirking count, toasts eternal vigour, his plate gleaming with fat-laced delicacies, while servants refill jars from a backroom stash. You gag at the oily stench, the room's opulence clashing with the grim reality of what's being served. Historically, these feasts were real, with nobles flaunting their wealth by consuming the dead, while the poor, often the source, got no invite. The church winked at it. Those cathedral donations didn't fund themselves. The table's a pageant of excess crystal goblets, stained linens, a harpist drowning out the whispers of doubt. You're half expecting a curse to crash the party, but the only horror is the guest denial. This is the Renaissance, where decadence meant eating the dead to cheat death. You're in a 17th century apothecary shop, once a hub of Renaissance corpse trade, now a ghost of its former self. Dustcoats jars that used to hold mummy powder and human fat. Their labels faded like forgotten promises. The air's stale, no longer thick with the rot of medicinal remains, as the era of corpse medicine crumbles under the weight of new science and old shame. You see the apothecary grey and hunch staring at empty shelves, his pestle idle for the first time in decades. The stench of decay's gone, replaced by the bitter tang of progress. Or is it just denial? This is the fall of a grim empire where grinding bones for cures went from cutting edge to cringe. By the late 1600s, corpse medicine was losing its shine. Physicians like Harvey with their blood circulation talk made skull powder sound like medieval nonsense, and Enlightenment thinkers sneered at cannibalistic cures. You watch the apothecary sweep a jar of human fat into a bin, muttering about modern quacks who'd rather bleed patients than bottle them. Historically, the trade faded as anatomy advanced, and ethics finally crept in, leaving apothecaries to peddle herbs instead of graves. The shop's a relic cracked mortars, a ledger listing mummy unsold, and a faint echo of coins that once clinked for corpses. The church, once complicit, now preaches against the old ways, conveniently forgetting their tithe-stuffed past. The room's quiet, save for the creak of floorboards and the apothecary's sigh. You're wondering if he misses the days when death was a bestseller, or if he's relieved to leave the curses behind. This is the Renaissance's endgame, where progress meant shelving the dead and pretending it never happened. You stand in a silent 17th century graveyard, where the moon casts long shadows over weathered stones, each one a mute witness to the Renaissance corpse trade. The air's heavy with earth and memory, no longer stirred by grave robbers or apothecaries hunting cures. This is the end of a morbid saga where Europe's hunger for mummy, powder blood tonics and human fat left scars deeper than the graves they looted. You hear nothing but wind, yet feel the weight of countless bodies hanged, smuggled, ground to dust whose echoes linger in the soil. The corpse trade's gone, but its shadow clings, a reminder of humanity's grim fascination with cheating death. This wasn't just a fad, it was a mirror. From 1500 to 1700, nobles, physicians, and even priests fed a market that turned the dead into medicine, exposing a world where hope was as grotesque as despair. You see a cracked headstone, its name erased, and imagine its occupant bottled for some lord's gout. Historically, the trade's decline left unmarked graves and uneasy consciences as science buried the old ways, though not before countless lives fueled the grind. The graveyard's a tapestry of loss, looted crypts, silent churches, and the faint hum of stories no one dares tell. The dead don't speak, but their absence screams louder than any sermon. You linger the fog curling like a shroud, and wonder what drove them to dig, to grind, to consume fear-greed, or just the human itch to outrun the inevitable. This is the Renaissance's dark heart, where progress and horror shared a grave, and the dead never truly rested. You're standing in a silent forest on Roanoke Island, 1590, where the air's thick with damp moss and something heavy adread. A gnarled tree looms its bark scarred with a single word, Croatoan, carved deep like a scream frozen in wood, the Roanoke colony. Over 100 souls is gone, their homes empty, their fires cold. You trace the letters rough under your fingers, and feel the forest hold its breath as if it knows something you don't. This is the vanishing's first clue, a cryptic note left by settlers who slipped into history's shadow, leaving you to wonder, was it a message, a plea, or a warning? In 1587, English settlers landed here dreaming of a new world, but by 1590 they'd vanished without a trace. Croatoan could point to a nearby island or tribe, but no bodies, no graves, no answers were ever found. You hear the wind hiss through pines, see shadows flicker where no one stands, and sense an eerie weight like folklore's whispering of lost souls or vengeful spirits. The colony's gone, but the word lingers, a puzzle no one's solved. Historically, it's a blank page. Maybe they joined the Croatoan tribe. Maybe they starved. Maybe something older took them. The forest doesn't care, it just watches. You're huddled in a Roanoke colony hut, 1588, where the air's sharp with salt and despair. The settlers' faces are gaunt eyes hollow as they ration mouldy bread, their stores dwindling like hope in a storm. Hunger gnaws at them, turning neighbours into strangers, and you feel the dread creeping a shadow darker than the night outside. The Roanoke colony's dream of a new Eden is starving, and whispers of desperation, stealing hoarding, worse fill the cracks in the palisade. You hear a child's whimper, see a mother's trembling hands, and smell the sour rot of empty barrels. Historically, the colony founded in 1587 faced harsh winters and failed crops cut off from English aid. By 1590 they were gone, leaving theories of starvation or desperate flight. You catch a settler's glance, wild with fear, as he mutters about eyes in the forest. Is it hunger talking or something? Older watching from the trees, the fire's dying, casting shadows that twist like spectres, and you're wondering if survival means eating what you shouldn't. The silence is heavy, broken only by the crunch of brittle bread and whispers of giving up. This is Roanoke, where hunger carved its own story and the forest kept the ending. You're on Roanoke Island's edge, 1589, where the night hums with distant drums faint as a pulse under the skin of the forest. The settlers' gaunt and jittery whisper of the Croatoan tribe, their name tied to that carved word, Croatoan, a lifeline or a lure. Some say the colony, starving and forsaken, sought refuge with the tribe, blending into a world not their own. You see flickering fires beyond the trees, hear chants that might be welcome or warning, and feel the air thicken with ambiguity. Is this salvation or surrender? The settlers' eyes dart, torn between hope and the shadows that seem to move just out of sight. Historically, the Roanoke colony vanished by 1590 with Croatoan, suggesting they joined the Croatoan people on a nearby island. No proof, only speculation of assimilation or slaughter. You catch a settler clutching a tattered Bible, muttering about trust while another sharpens a knife fear, overriding faith. The drums grow louder, or is that your heartbeat? The forest's edge feels alive, whispering tales of lost souls or tribal mercy, but nothing certain. This is Roanoke, where answers dissolved into questions, and the Croatoan's name became a ghost story. You're left staring at the firelight, wondering if it's a beacon or a trap. You're in the heart of Roanoke's abandoned colony, 1590, where the silence is louder than any scream. The palisades' overgrown huts sagging under vines, as if the forest reclaimed the settlers' dreams overnight. No footsteps, no voices, only the eerie quiet of a place that swallowed over 100 souls. You see the Croatoan carving now weathered and feel eyes in the shadows, though nothing moves. The air's damp, heavy with moss, and something older like the land itself is holding a secret it won't share. This is the vanishing's aftermath, where absence feels alive. By 1590, the colony was gone, leaving no bodies, only theories, starvation flight, or something whispered in local folklore about spirits claiming the lost. You step over a broken cradle, its wood splintered, and hear the wind sigh, or is it a voice? The forest watches its silence, a canvas for dread. Maybe the settlers fled, maybe they were taken, maybe they're still here, unseen. Historically, no trace was found, making Roanoke a riddle wrapped in fog. You're alone yet, not the quiet pressing like a hand on your chest. This is Roanoke, where the forest keeps its own counsel and the truth stays buried. You're crouched in the reeds near Roanoke's shore, 1589, where the air's thick with salt and fear. The settlers' whispers carry tales of unseen enemies. Local tribes may be watching from the trees as tensions boil. A snapped twig, a distant war cry, and suddenly the sand stained red, though you can't tell whose blood it is. The colony, already starving, teeters on a knife's edge, and you feel the dread of conflict that might have erased them all. The rustling reeds hide shadows that move too fast, and the air hums with the threat of arrows no one sees coming. Historically, the Roanoke colony, founded in 1587, clashed with local tribes like the Secatan, strained by scarce resources and broken trust. By 1590, they were gone, with theories pointing to violent skirmishes as a possible cause. You hear a settler's ragged breath clutching a musket he barely knows how to use, while the forest echoes with screams, real or imagined. The tide laps at the blooded sand, washing away proof, leaving only the Croatoan carving as a cryptic hint. Was it war betrayal or something older? The night's alive with menace, the stars cold and uncaring. This is Roanoke, where blood spilled faster than answers. You're in a Roanoke colony hut, 1589, where the air's heavy with grief and the creak of an empty cradle. Virginia Dare. The first English child born in the New World is gone, along with the colony's other children, their laughter silenced by a mystery that chokes the heart. Parents clutch tattered blankets, eyes hollow with loss as the palisade outside sags under creeping vines. You see a mother trace her child's name in the dust, hear her sob break the silence, and feel the weight of a colony unravelling. The Croatoan carving looms in your mind, a cruel riddle with no answer. By 1590, the entire colony, over 100 souls, including Virginia, vanished, leaving no trace. Theories whisper of starvation, tribal conflict, or assimilation, but the children's absence cuts deepest. You notice a tiny shoe abandoned, half buried in dirt, and wonder if they wandered into the forest or were taken by something unseen. The air's thick with melancholy, the kind that lingers like fog hinting at spirits or sorrow too heavy for the living. This is Roanoke, where innocence was the first casualty and grief wrote the only story left. You're in a Roanoke colony camp, 1589, where the fire's gone cold and the air reeks of desperation. Settlers huddle their faces, skeletal eyes darting, like they're hiding something worse than hunger. Whispers slither through the dark rumours of cannibalism born from empty bellies and a forest that offers nothing but silence. You see a gnawed bone too human to ignore, half buried in ash, and catch guilty glances that scream louder than words. The Croatoan carving feels like a distant memory overshadowed by the horror of what starvation might have driven them to. Historically, the Roanoke colony vanished by 1590, with starvation a likely culprit. Some speculate desperation led to cannibalism, though no proof survives, just eerie absence. You hear a settler's ragged breath, see another clutch a knife, not for defence but dread. The air's thick with rot and shame, the kind that lingers like a curse. Is that the wind howling, or something older judging from the shadows? This is Roanoke, where survival meant crossing lines. No one dared name, and the forest swallowed the evidence. You're left staring at the bone, wondering how far you'd go to live. You stand on Roanoke's fog-shrouded shore, 1590, where the colony is gone, leaving only Croatoan carved in a tree and a silence that hums with questions. The Palisades' crumbled huts swallowed by vines, as if the land erased the settlers' dreams. Over 100 souls, Virginia Dare family's hopes, vanish their fate, a riddle that haunts centuries later. You feel the mist cling, see the tide lap at empty sands, and hear nothing but the ghost of their absence. This is Roanoke's enduring pull, a mystery that whispers of starvation tribes or something older, forever unanswered. By 1590, the colony was lost with theories of assimilation, slaughter or despair, but no trace remains. You trace the carving, its edges soft with time, and wonder, did they flee fight or fade into the forest's secrets? The air's heavy with melancholy, this kind that seeps into bones, hinting at spirits or stories too heavy to tell. Historically, Roanoke's enigma endures a blank page in history's book. This is where hope drowned, yet its ghost lingers, drawing dreamers to fog-shrouded shores. You're left alone, the mystery's weight heavier than the sea. You're atop a Maya pyramid in Tikal, 700 CE, where the air's thick with incense and the roar of 1,000 voices. A priest adorned in jaguar pelts raises an obsidian blade, its edge glinting under the sun, as a captive lies bound on a blood-stained altar. The blade plunges, and a heart still pulsing rises in the priest's hands, offered to the gods to keep the cosmos spinning. You smell the coppery tang of blood, feel the crowd's fervent awe, and see the heart gleam, a sacred gift in a world where sacrifice was life itself. This is the Maya's heart, offering a ritual as brutal as it was revered. Historically, the classic Maya, from 250 to 900 CE, performed heart extractions to appease deities like Kukulkan, ensuring rain and fertility. Captives often, warriors faced the altar with eerie calm, their deaths a bridge to the divine. You hear the priest chant, a rhythmic plea to the heavens, as blood drips down the pyramid steps, each drop a prayer. The scene's horrifying, yet majestic, a testament to a culture where blood was currency for cosmic balance. This is the Maya world, where life fed death to keep the stars aligned. You're at the edge of a Chichen Itza cenote, 800 CE, where the water's a murky mirror under a relentless sun. A young captive, painted blue like the sky, god Chak stands, trembling, adorned with jade and feathers, ready for the sacred plunge. Priests chant, their voices rising as the crowd holds its breath, and with a push the figure falls, swallowed by the cenote's depths, as an offering to ensure rain. You smell damp stone and smoky copal, hear the splash echo like a heartbeat, and feel the air crackle with suspense. This is the Maya's blue sacrifice, a ritual where water became a gateway to the gods. In the classic Maya era, cenotes were wholly believed to connect to the underworld. Victims, often youths or captives, were painted blue and cast into these sinkholes, their deaths pleading for cosmic favour. You see the ripples fade, the crowd's solemn gazes fixed on the water, waiting for a sign. The scene's chilling, yet the Maya saw it as sacred, a necessary act to coax rain from stingy skies. This is their world where beauty and horror wove a tapestry of faith and sacrifice, was a love letter to the divine. You're in a torchlit Maya temple, 750 CE, where a noble kneels before a stone altar, his face serene despite the sting of an obsidian blade. He pierces his tongue, blood dripping like scarlet prayers and offering to the gods to ensure cosmic balance. The air's thick with copal incense, its smoke curling around jade ornaments as priests chant in rhythmic reverence. You feel the crowd's awe, see the noble's blood pool on sacred cloth and smell its iron tang mingling with the heat. This is Maya bloodletting, where nobles shed their own life to honour the divine. In the classic Maya period, 250-900 CE elites performed bloodletting, piercing tongues, ears or genitals to commune with gods like Kukulkan. It wasn't pain, it was duty, a sacred act to sustain the world. You watch the noble wince his blood staining the altar, each drop a plea for rain or victory. The scene's both horrifying and holy, a testament to a culture where sacrifice was power. This is the Maya world where blood was a bridge to the heavens and nobility meant bleeding for the gods. You're in a Chichen Itza ball court, 850 CE, where the crowd's roar shakes the stone walls and two teams battle in the sacred Maya game. A rubber ball flies, players collide, but the stakes are higher than glory losers face the altar, their hearts destined for the gods. The air crackles with tension, smelling of sweat and dust as a player's shot misses, sealing his fate. You hear the crowd's gasp, see the priest's obsidian blade gleam and feel the dread as the losers led to the altar. This is the ball game's price, where defeat meant death. Historically, the Maya ball game, played from 250-900 CE, was a ritual with losers often captive sacrificed to appease deities. The court's a cauldron of noise, the stone walls carved with scenes of decapitation. You watch the loser's eyes, defiant yet doomed, as the crowd chants for blood. It's thrilling, horrifying, a dance of sport and sacrifice where every goal carried cosmic weight. This is the Maya world where a game was a prayer and losing was eternal. You're atop a Chichen Itza pyramid, 900 CE, where the air shimmers with heat and the scent of smoky incense. A priest in a feathered headdress chants, his voice soaring, as a captive's heart is torn free, offered to Kukulkan, the serpent god, to sate his cosmic hunger. The crowd's fervour pulses, their eyes fixed on the blood-slick altar, believing each sacrifice keeps the sun rising. You see the heart glint in torchlight, smell the iron tang mixed with copal, and feel the grandeur of a ritual that binds earth to sky. This is the Maya's offering, where death fed the gods to sustain the world. In the classic Maya era, 250-900 CE sacrifices to Kukulkan ensured rain harvests and cosmic order. Captives or volunteers faced the blade, their blood, a sacred currency. You hear the crowd's roar, a mix of awe and fear, as the priest raises the heart, its pulse fading like a drum. The scene's both horrific and majestic, a culture's faith carved in flesh. This is the Maya world where Kukulkan's hunger demanded life, and sacrifice was a hymn to eternity. You stand before a silent Maya pyramid, 900 CE, its stones worn but heavy with the memory of blood-soaked altars. The chants are gone, the crowd's dispersed, yet the legacy of sacrifice lingers etched in the quiet of Tikal's ruins. Hearts, blue-painted bodies, and noble blood fed gods like Kukulkan, binding the Maya to a cosmos they revered. You smell faint earth and moss, see the altar's stains faded by time, and feel the weight of a culture where death was life's mirror. This is the Maya's enduring story, where sacrifice wove faith into stone. From 250-900 CE, the Maya's rituals shaped a world of gods and stars, their altars a testament to devotion. You trace a carving its edges, soft, and wonder at the lives given to keep the world turning. The silence hums with their legacy, not just horror, but a profound respect for existence. This is the Maya world where blood altars stand as relics of a faith that outlasts empires, haunting us with its depth. You're left with the pyramid's shadow, a reminder of humanity's dance with the divine. Hey there, you cozy listener tucked under your soft blanket with maybe a fan humming gently in the background. Before we dive into the gritty, frostbitten world of medieval peasants, hit that like button if you're ready for a tale of stubborn survival, and drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from London at midnight California at dusk. It's wild to think we're all connected, sharing this story across the globe. Now, dim those lights, maybe grab a warm drink, and let's slip into a time when winter wasn't just chilly, it was a battle you fought with every shivering breath. Picture yourself in medieval Europe, not in a shiny castle with tapestries and roaring fireplaces, but in a muddy village where the real heroes lived peasants. These folks weren't jousting knights or feasting lords. They were the everyday backbone of the world, scraping by with nothing but grit, clever tricks, and a refusal to let the cold win. Their lives were raw, their nights brutal, yet they found ways to laugh, to endure, to outsmart the frost that wanted to claim them. Tonight, we're diving into how they survived the coldest, darkest winters. Think howling winds, no central heating, and a bed that's basically a sack of crunchy straw. It's a story of human stubbornness, of people who faced nature's worst, and still woke up to chew on a frozen turnip like it was a victory. So settle in, and let's walk through their world where every creak of the wind was a challenge and every spark in the hearth was hope. This isn't the Hollywood version of the Middle Ages with gallant knights and merry banquets. Forget that noise. For peasants, winter was a test where passing meant you didn't die before spring. You're home. A flimsy hut of mud and sticks, the kind of place where you'd hear a squirrel sneeze through the walls. No glass windows, no fluffy duvets, just you, your family, maybe a goat and a fire that's trying its best, but mostly just toasting the toes of whoever hogged the spot closest to it. The cold didn't care about your dreams or your plans. It crept in, relentless, turning your breath into clouds and your fingers into clumsy stubs. Yet these peasants, they didn't just roll over. They layered every scrap of cloth they owned, stuffed moss into wall cracks, and huddled so close you'd think they invented the group hug. They were clever, tough, and maybe a bit smelly, but who's judging when survival's on the line? Their story kicks off with the basics, how they kept the cold, from turning them into human icicles. Ready to feel a little tougher just hearing about it? Let's go. Imagine this, you're a medieval peasant and winter's got you in its icy grip. You're in your hut, if you can call it that. A rickety pile of sticks and mud that's about as weatherproof as a paper bag. The wind's howling outside, sounding like some angry spirit who didn't get invited to supper, and it's sneaking through every crack, chilling you to the bone. You're not thinking about Netflix or a hot shower. You're wondering how you'll make it to morning without freezing solid. Welcome to the cold reality of peasant life, where the temperature inside your home is just a smidge less miserable than the blizzard outside. No thermostat to crank up, no electric blanket, just you, a sputtering fire, and a whole lot of stubbornness. Your walls are so thin you can feel the frost's breath on your neck, and the only window is a tiny hole stuffed with animal hide that flaps like it's trying to escape. The fire in the hearth is your lifeline, but it's a pathetic thing coughing out more smoke than heat, unless you're practically sitting in it. If you're across the room, tough luck, you're basically camping in the Arctic with worse snacks. Clothes. You've got a couple of wool tunics scratchy as a bad haircut, and a cloak that smells like it's been living with the goats too long. Layer them up and you're still not warm, just a shivering onion with extra itch. Beds are no comfort, either just sacks of straw that crunch when you move and come with free fleas for company. The cold's not just uncomfortable, it's a predator. Frostbite, hypothermia. Those were real risks, especially for kids or the old folks. Waking up with all your toes was a win worth celebrating with a slightly less frozen chunk of bread. But here's the kicker. These peasants didn't just survive, they got creative. They'd pile on every rag huddle with their animals and pray the fire didn't quit. That's the spirit we're diving into next, how they turned desperation into ingenuity, one chilly night at a time. Alright, you're still with me in this freezing medieval village where the wind's biting like a cranky badger, and your only defence is what you're wearing. Forget fashion medieval peasants dressed for war against the cold, and their wardrobe was less about style and more about not becoming a frostbitten statue. Picture yourself pulling on every scrap of clothing you own, layering up like you're prepping for a showdown with winter itself. Your base layer's a linen tunic rough as sandpaper, and probably not washed since the last harvest. Over that goes a woolen tunic heavy and scratchy, smelling faintly of sheep and yesterday's stew. Got another pilot on. Add some sagging leggings that bunch at the knees like they're giving up and drape a cloak over your shoulders. Bonus points if it's patched and reeks of goat. If you're lucky, you've got a sheepskin to fling on top your prize trophy in this battle for warmth. You're not winning any beauty contest, but you're 10% warmer and 90% itchier, and that's a trade you'll take. Footwear. Don't get your hopes up. Boots are for the fancy folks. You're wrapping your feet in rags, maybe stuffing them into wooden clogs that clomp like you're tap dancing on ice. If the cold still sneaks through, you add another rag and pray your toes don't stage a mutiny. Washing this pile of clothes. Good one. Dragging your only tunic to a frozen stream smashing through ice, and waiting days for it to dry or freeze into a sad stiff plank isn't happening, so you embrace the grime. That mix of smoke, sweat and sheep becomes your winter perfume, and here's the genius part: the dirt and grease trap heat, like a medieval version of a high-tech jacket, just with more character. Hats and scarves are your MVPs, a wool cap, keeping your ears from snapping off a scrap of cloth around your neck holding in precious warmth. Kids. They're swaddled until they waddle like overstuffed turnips, barely able to move but toasty enough to survive. In this world, warmth is the only flex that matters, and every layer's a badge of your stubborn will to outlast the frost. Next, we'll see how their homes, or lack thereof, made this fight even tougher. Now let's step inside your medieval peasant home, if you can call it that. You're hoping for a cosy refuge from the winter's wrath, but what you get is a drafty shack that's basically a wind tunnel with ambitions. These huts built from wattle and daub think sticks woven like a giant basket and slathered with a mix of mud, straw and, yes, animal dung are about as sturdy as a house of cards in a storm. The dung's not for laughs. It's cheap, sticky and insulates better than nothing. But let's be real, these walls are so thin the cold laughs as it sneaks through every crack, swirling around your one-room home like an uninvited guest who won't leave. Privacy. Nope. Warmth. Barely. Character-building misery. Oh, you're swimming in it. The roof's thatched, which sounds quaint until it sags under snow leaks like a sieve, or lets in a squirrel who thinks your dinner's a buffet. Windows. Maybe a tiny hole covered with animal hide, or a wooden shutter that rattles like it's auditioning for a ghost story. Glass is for lords, not you. The floor's just compacted dirt, and when it rains or snows, it turns into a muddy swamp, so you're sloshing through your own home like it's a low-budget marsh. Cold attacks from above, below, and all sides a full-on assault on your body heat. But peasants weren't quitters. They fought back with whatever they had, stuffing moss and old rags into cracks, smearing extra mud and dung on the walls like it's a winter art project. It's not pretty, but it's you versus the elements, and you're not going down without a fight. This is ingenuity born of desperation, a stubborn refusal to let the cold win. Up next, we'll dive into how the frozen ground itself became another enemy, and how they battled it with nothing but straw and grit. You're still shivering in your medieval peasant hut, where the walls are more suggestion than structure, and now let's talk about the floor, or what passes for one. Forget polished hardwood or cosy carpets. Your floor is just the earth packed down like a grudging handshake with the ground. In winter, that dirt turns traitor, soaking up the cold and sending it straight into your bones like an evil spirit with a personal grudge. Step barefoot and it's like walking on a frozen pond each step, sucking the warmth from your toes. Drop a spoon. Good luck, it's now part of the permafrost glued to the ground until spring. This isn't just a floor, it's a battlefield where the cold fights dirty, creeping up through your thin straw mat to remind you who's boss. But peasants, they didn't just curse the darkness or the frozen dirt. They fought back with what they had, which wasn't much but enough to make a difference. If you could scrounge some straw, maybe borrowed from a neighbour's field, you'd spread it thick across the floor, a crunchy barrier against the chill. It wasn't perfect. Straw flattened fast, got mouldy faster, and added a crackling soundtrack to your restless nights. Some folks used dried rushes instead, long grasses piled high, sometimes sprinkled with herbs like lavender to mask the whiff of livestock and despair. Sounds nice. Sure, until the rushes trampled into a damp, flea-infested mess, a living carpet that smelled like a wet dog with dreams of grandeur. Over time, you'd toss fresh rushes on top without clearing the old building, a squishy, smelly ecosystem that was part floor, part science experiment. It wasn't luxury, but it kept you one step above the icy ground, and in a world where losing a toe was a bad Tuesday, that was a win. Next, we'll warm things up by the hearth, the flickering heart of every peasant home. Now let's huddle close to the one thing keeping you from freezing solid in this medieval peasant hut, the hearth. This isn't some fancy fireplace with a carved mantel. It's a rough pit of stones in the middle of your room, spitting sparks and smoke like a grumpy dragon with a cold. It's the heart of your home, the only real weapon against the winter's icy claws, and you treat it like a sacred thing because it is. The hearth doesn't just give warmth. It's your kitchen, your light, your gathering spot where stories are swapped and the darkness is held at bay. Without it, you're just a shivering shadow in a world that doesn't care if you make it to morning. But oh, it's a fickle friend. No chimney means smoke fills the room, stinging your eyes and coating your lungs until you're half-human, half-smoked ham. It drifts out through a hole in the roof if the wind's feeling kind, or just swirls around, fumigating fleas and making you wonder if breathing's overrated. Keeping the fire alive is a full-time job. Let it die, and the cold rushes in faster than gossip at a village well. Restarting it. That's striking flint and steel with frozen fingers, coaxing a spark like you're begging a miracle from a saint. Everyone's got a role, kids tossing sticks. Grandma watches the embers, and you pray your one dry log doesn't burn out before dawn. The hearth's warmth is life, but it's also a tease strongest for whoever's hogging the prime spot, leaving the rest of you to shiver and curse. Yet it's more than heat. It's hope. A flickering reminder that you're still here, still fighting. Next, we'll uncover the art of fire, banking the clever trick that kept those embers glowing through the night. You're crouched by the hearth in your medieval peasant hut, the fire's glow, the only thing keeping the winter's icy fingers at bay. But night's closing in, and letting that fire die is like inviting the cold to tuck you in for a permanent nap. Matches lighters. Not in this century. Restarting a fire means fumbling with flint and steel in the freezing dark, your fingers stiff as old leather, praying for a spark while the wind howls like it's laughing at you. That's where fire banking comes in, a clever trick that's half skill, half prayer, passed down like a family secret thicker than your best stew. It's how peasants kept the embers alive overnight, buying precious hours of warmth without wrestling a new flame from scratch. Here's how it works. Before bed, you grab a handful of ash dry, mind you, none of that damp nonsense, and gently bury the glowing coals in the hearth, tucking them in like they're your last hope, because they are. The ash acts like a blanket, insulating the embers so they smoulder just enough to stay alive until dawn. Do it right, and you wake to a pile you can poke out a stick and coax back into a blaze. Do it wrong. You're staring at a cold, dead hearth, and your morning's off to a grumpy, frostbitten start. Every family had their quirks. Some swore by packing the ash tight, others left it loose to let the coals breathe. It was the medieval equivalent of arguing over how to load a dishwasher, except the stakes were your toes. A stray gust or a clumsy sheep stumbling into the hearth could ruin it, so someone, probably you bleary-eyed and cursing, might check the coals in the night. Banking wasn't about conquering the cold, it was about outsmarting it one glowing ember at a time. Next, we'll see how huddling together turned survival into a sweaty, snoring team sport. It's the dead of night in your medieval peasant hut, the kind of cold that makes your teeth chatter like a bad musician. The hearth is doing its best, but it's no match for the winter wind sneaking through the walls. So you turn to your secret weapon, each other. Forget personal space or privacy. Those are lordly luxuries. In this hut, survival means piling together like a human lasagna, everyone from your snoring uncle to the neighbour's kids squeezed into the warmest corner. You're wrapped in every scrap of cloth you own, huddling so close you can smell last week's cabbage on your cousin's breath. It's not cosy, it's desperate, but it works. Body heat is your best defence against waking up frozen to the floor. The setup's strategic. Babies and frail elders get tucked in the middle, cocooned like precious embers, soaking up the warmth radiating from all sides. Stronger folks like you take the edges, acting as human shields against the drafts. Kids squirm between parents, and if Aunt Maud shows up, you scoot over, there's always room for one more. The bed, a shared straw mattress that's flattening under the weight of 3 generations, creaking and poking with every move. Shift too much and you might knock someone into the icy draft by the wall, earning you the title of family villain. It's not fragrant either, hygiene's on hold until spring, so you're all marinating in a mix of sweat, smoke and livestock. But when frostbite's knocking, you don't complain about the smell. These nights aren't just about survival. They're bonding, filled with mumbled stories and muffled laughs under shared blankets. It's human stubbornness at its finest, turning a freezing night into a victory of togetherness. Next, we'll explore how bringing the animals inside added warmth and a whole lot of chaos. You're huddled in your medieval peasant hut, the wind screaming outside like it's got a personal vendetta, and the hearth's doing its best to keep the cold at bay. But there's another trick up your sleeve, or rather in your barn. Welcome to the chaos of bringing the livestock indoors, where your winter roommates include cows, goats, pigs, and maybe a chicken with a questionable sense of personal space. This isn't some quirky village tradition, it's survival math. Animals give off heat, and in a hut where the walls are more holes than structure, every degree counts. Plus, keeping your goat inside means it's less likely to get snatched by a neighbour with sticky fingers. 2 birds, 1 very smelly stone. At night, your hut turns into a living furnace of snorts, clucks, and the occasional hoof to the ribs. Cows, the heavy hitters of warmth, claim prime spots near the walls, chewing cud like they own the place. Goats wiggling close because goats don't respect boundaries, and chickens roost in corners or on rafters, eyeing your hair like it's a nest. Pigs, they just flop wherever they please, probably right where you need to step. The smell's a legend in itself. Think barnyard meats, unwashed socks, a scent that could wake the dead by spring. But you don't complain, because more animals mean fewer frozen toes. It's not glamorous. Step barefoot into a surprise on the floor, or wake to a chicken pecking your ear and you'll wish for a modern motel. Yet peasants knew the deal cold kills, but cow breath warms, even if it's a bit slobbery. This chaotic, stinky huddle was a lifeline proof that survival sometimes smells like a barn and sounds like a pig's snore. Next, we'll revisit how layering clothes turned you into a walking laundry pile fighting the cold, one itchy tunic at a time. Back in your medieval peasant hut where the cold's trying to turn you into an icicle, let's talk about your wardrobe, because in winter, fashion's just another word for don't die. You're not flipping through a catalogue for the latest trends. You're piling on every scrap of cloth you own like you're armouring up for a frostbite duel. Start with a linen undertunic, scratchy as a sack and smelling like last month's chores. Over that, a wool tunic, thick and heavy, maybe 2 if you've got 'em. Leggings sag at the knees like they're tired of life, and a cloak probably borrowed from a sheep's bad day gets draped over it all. If you've got a sheepskin, you fling it on top like a trophy, because in this game, warmth is the only runway that matters. You're a lumpy, itchy bundle, but you're not freezing solid, so call it a win. Shoes dream on. Unless you're a lord, you're wrapping your feet in cloth scraps, maybe jamming them into wooden clogs that clunk like a bad dance move. If the cold still bites, you add another rag and hope your toes stick around for spring. Washing this pile, not happening. Hauling clothes to a frozen stream and waiting days for them to dry or freeze into a crispy tunic sculpture is a fool's errand. So you lean into the grime, that mix of sweat smoke and livestock funk becoming your winter cologne. Here's the kicker that dirt's your secret weapon, clogging the fabric's weave to trap heat, like a medieval insulator. Hats and gloves cobbled from leather scraps or leftover wool are treasures keeping your ears and fingers from snapping off. Kids get swaddled until they're waddling turnips, barely mobile but warm. It's not about looking good, it's about outlasting the cold, and every layer's proof you're tougher than winter's worst. Next, we'll dig into how dirt itself became a survival tool, turning grime into glory. You're still shivering in your medieval peasant hut, where winter's got you cornered and your clothes are a patchwork fortress against the cold. But here's a plot twist: dirt, that grime you'd scrub off in a hot shower today, was a medieval survival hack. Forget hygiene commercials being filthy wasn't a sign you'd given up, it was tactical genius. Every day you trudged through mud sweat and the faint whiff of your neighbour's goat. Your tunics and cloaks collected a crust of natural oils dust and good old-fashioned muck. This wasn't just mess, it was insulation clogging the gaps in your wool's weave like a DIY windbreaker. You smelled like a barn that lost a bet, but you were warmer, and in a world where frostbite was a bad Tuesday, that was a victory worth celebrating. Clean clothes, they were a trap. Freshly washed linen might feel nice for a minute, but it's breathable, letting icy air slip through like a thief. Grimy layers, on the other hand, locked in your body heat, turning your tunic into a medieval Gore-Tex jacket, just with more personality. Bathing was a rare event, soap was for bishops or your deathbed, and washing in a frozen stream was a one-way ticket to pneumonia. So you kept the filth layering new clothes over last months without a second thought, each stain a badge of survival. Your cloak became a walking diary, that mud from the field, that grease from the stew pot, all telling the story of how you didn't freeze. Nobody cared about the smell, everyone stank, so nose blindness was just life. In this gritty, frostbitten world, dirt wasn't failure, it was fashion function, and a defiant middle finger to winter's chill. Next, we'll crawl into the straw beds that were less about comfort, and more about not freezing to the floor. It's another bone-chilling night in your medieval peasant hut, and you're dreaming of a soft, warm bed. Snap out of it, your reality is a straw mattress. and it's about as comfy as sleeping on a pile of crunchy regrets. These beds weren't the plush feather nests of lords. They were rough wooden frames, if you could afford one, stuffed with a sack of hay straw or old rushes. No memory foam, no box springs, just a lumpy, poky mess that smells like a barnyard took a vow of silence. Toss and turn, and you're serenaded by the crinkle of straw punctuated by a sharp stalk, jabbing your ribs like it's personal. And let's not forget the bonus guests fleas and lice who love this setup as much as you hate it, turning every nap into an itch fest. But here's the thing, those straw beds were lifesavers, not luxuries. They lifted you off the frozen dirt floor where the cold lurked like a thief ready to steal your toes. Piled high, the straw trapped pockets of body heat, especially when you huddled with your family creating a sweaty snoring cocoon against the frost. Sure, it flattened fast, got mouldy faster, and sometimes hosted bugs that seemed to hold council meetings at midnight. Changing the straw was a big deal done a few times a year if you were diligent or when your bed started wiggling on its own. Some folks spread rushes on the floor instead, maybe tossing in a sprig of lavender to fight the livestock funk, but those grasses turned into a muddy, trampled mess quick. It wasn't a 5-star hotel, but it kept you alive, and in a world where waking up with all your limbs was a win that was enough. Next, we'll see how peasants turned their leaky huts into fortresses, stuffing every crack with whatever they could find. You're holed up in your medieval peasant hut, where winter's wind howls like it's got a score to settle, and your walls, flimsy sticks and mud, are leaking cold like a sieve. This place isn't a cosy cabin. It's a drafty shell that's one gust away from giving up. Every night the chill finds new gaps to slink through a frosty poltergeist that slaps you awake just when you're dozing off. But you're not helpless. You're a peasant, and sealing up the house is your crafty rebellion against nature's tantrum, a battle, fought with whatever you can cram into the cracks. You grab moss from the woods, straw from the barn, old rags stiff with history, even clumps of animal hair, anything soft enough to plug a hole gets the call. It's not just patching, it's an art. You stuff every chink with care like you're tucking in a child, knowing one missed spot could let the cold waltz right in. Some folks go big slathering extra mud and dung over the walls outside, standing in the freezing slush muttering, "This is fine," as they smear manure like it's a masterpiece. The roof's another fight. Thatch sags under snow, leaking like a tired old sponge, so you plug holes with cloth scraps or stolen turf, turning your home into a patchwork quilt that's more sad than snug. Doors and windows, if you've got 'em, are just planks or hides flapping in the wind, so you soak cloth in fat to block drafts, adding a whiff of mystery meat to the air. It's a constant war, the cold sneaking past your defences like it's mocking you. But with every stuffed crack you're spitting in winter's eye, proving you're tougher than the frost, with nothing but mud and stubbornness. Next, we'll dive into how sleeping in shifts kept the fire and hope alive through the darkest nights. It's the dead of winter in your medieval peasant hut, and the cold's so fierce it feels like it's chewing on your bones. The hearth's your only ally, but it's a needy one, demanding constant attention to keep its embers alive. Let it die, and you're facing a morning colder than a tax collector's heart with no matches to save you. So you and your family don't even pretend to sleep all at once. You take shifts, a gritty system that's less about rest and more about survival. Half the household stays awake, poking the fire and patching stray drafts, while the other half curls up in a straw pile, stealing a few hours of half-frozen sleep under threadbare blankets. It's not a military drill with bugles, it's a desperate dance to keep the warmth from slipping away. You're on ember patrol, squinting through the smoky dark, prodding the coals to coax a flicker, while a goat rustles nearby. Kids old enough to hold a stick get roped in, learning fast that winter doesn't care about bedtime stories. Grandparents linger by the fire, their creaky joints making lying down a saga, their eyes sharp from years of outsmarting the cold. When it's your turn to sleep, good luck someone's always stumbling around the winds battering the walls, and a sibling's elbow might jab you awake. Rest is a miracle snatched in fits between shivers and snores, but it works. Those bleary-eyed hands keep the hearth alive, and the embers mean you all survive. It's exhausting, sure, but it's family, everyone pulling their weight to beat the frost. Think about that next time you grumble about flipping a thermostat switch. Up next, we'll explore how breathing itself became a survival art, one shallow sniff at a time. You're curled up in your medieval peasant hut, the kind of cold night where the air feels like it's sharpening its knives on your lungs. The hearth's flickering, your family's packed in tight, but even with all that breathing wrong could land you in a world of hurt, deep gulping breaths. That's a rookie mistake, pulling icy air straight into your chest like you're inviting pneumonia to move in. In a time when a cough could send you to meet your maker faster than a bad harvest, peasants mastered what you might call survival, breathing slow, shallow, and strictly through the nose. It's not just breathing. It's a calculated act of defiance against winter's chill, warming the air just enough before it hits your lungs. Picture it, you're tucked under a grimy cloak straw, poking your ribs, a cow snoring nearby. You keep your breaths light like you're sipping air through a straw, letting your nose warm it up to avoid that lung-searing sting. Mess up and gulp a big mouthful of frost. Congratulations, you're hacking up your soul for a week with only grandma's onion tea and a prayer to fix you. Some folks drape a rag or shawl over their face, creating a damp, soggy barrier that traps a bit of warmth gross, but better than freezing from the inside. Kids get schooled early, scolded for panting like dogs indoors because winter's a harsh teacher. It's like a grim yoga class, all focus and no frills with frostbite as the penalty for slacking. Between itchy layers, gassy livestock, and now this breathing trick medieval life's building character you didn't know you had. It's not flashy, but every careful sniff is a small win, keeping you alive one breath at a time. Next, we'll dig into how a full belly became your secret weapon against the cold, one hearty stew at a time. It's another brutal night in your medieval peasant hut where the cold's trying to turn you into a popsicle, and you're clinging to every trick to stay warm. Here's one you didn't expect stuffing your face before bed. A full belly wasn't just about satisfaction. It was a furnace churning through calories to keep your insides toasty. Eating heavy was medieval thermodynamics load up on hearty grub, and your body works overtime digesting generating heat to fend off the frost. It's not about dainty salads or Instagram-worthy plates. It's about piling in food so dense it sits in your gut like a loyal brick burning slow to keep you alive until dawn. Your menu's no gourmet spread. Think thick stews crammed with turnips, onions and parsnips, maybe a chunk of salted pork if the pigs had a bad day. Grains are your lifeline oat porridge that sticks to your ribs, barley gruel or rye bread, so chewy it's practically a workout. If you're lucky, a festival might mean a slice of dried sausage tossed in the pot, but mostly it's brown, lumpy and built for survival. Fatty foods are gold, burning slower than lean meat, giving you a steady trickle of warmth. Parents don't care if you're picky, eat the turnips or shiver all night dreaming of them. It's harsh love, but it works. The downside. A gutful of cabbage might fuel some wild stew-powered dreams, but that's a small price for not freezing solid. This isn't about comfort eating. It's strategy, a belly stuffed with grit to outlast the cold. Next, we'll uncover the genius of hay boxes and heated stones, turning simple tools into winter's unsung heroes. You're shivering in your medieval peasant hut, the cold creeping in like it's got a personal grudge and the hearth's doing its best but can't keep up. Time to pull out some old-school genius hay boxes and heated stones, the unsung heroes of winter survival. No electric blankets here, just pure gritty ingenuity to steal a bit of warmth from a world that's trying to freeze you solid. The hay box is rustic brilliance. A wooden crate lined thick with hay, used to keep food hot for hours. Toss in a pot of steaming stew or porridge, bury it in the hay, and it's like a medieval slow cooker ready for a late-night bite without risking a fire restart. But peasants didn't stop at soup. They realised hay could trap heat for more than just dinner, and that's where stones come in. Before bed, you or the kid who lost the argument grab a flat stone and chuck it into the hearth's heart, letting it roast until it's practically glowing. Fishing it out with a stick because, ouch, you wrap it in rags or tuck it into a clay pot, then slip it into the straw mattress or down by your feet. It's a medieval heating pad radiating warmth that fights the frozen floor for hours. Get it wrong though, and you're flirting with a mini house fire or a bruised toe if you drop it. Done right, it's a small miracle, a pocket of heat that keeps icicles off your nose. These tricks weren't fancy, but they were proof that peasants could outsmart winter with nothing but hay rocks and a stubborn refusal to give up. Next, we'll see how sleeping by the hearth turned warmth into a family strategy, with the fire as your cranky but vital ally. It's the darkest hour in your medieval peasant hut, where winter's cold is a thief that steals your breath, and the hearth is your only lifeline. This smoky, stubborn fire pit isn't just for cooking, it's practically family, the cranky kind that keeps you alive but makes you work for it. Sleeping by the hearth isn't about cozy vibes, it's survival math. The closer you are to those flickering flames, the better your odds of waking up without frost on your eyebrows. So you arrange your family like you're playing a high-stakes game of Tetris. everyone jockeying for a spot where the heat can reach. Babies, elders, and anyone with a cough get prime real estate right by the fire, because they're the fragile ones, the ones you can't afford to lose. You and the sturdier folks fan out from there, layering yourselves like human insulation, your scratchy cloaks and straw mattress doing their best to trap the warmth. It's not about fairness, it's about who needs the heat most. Infants are tiny heat generators tucked close to keep them breathing. Old folks carry the family stories and gossip, so they get the warm spot too. Too close though, and you're risking singed hair or a stray spark landing on your tunic. Too far and you're shivering in the drafty shadows, envying the cow snoring by the wall. The hearth's a temperamental ally spitting smoke that stings your eyes and demands constant feeding, but it's the heart of your home. Every crackle is a reminder you're still here, still fighting. This is where the story of peasant grit burns brightest, huddled by a fire that's as stubborn as you're ready for another frosty dawn. Imagine you're trudging through Prue's Soup Valley, the sun scorching your neck, sand crunching underfoot the river, a mere trickle in a sea of dust. It's the 1990s, and you're with archaeologist Ruth Shady, chasing whispers of something hidden beneath these weathered mounds. To the untrained eye, they're just hills shaped by wind and time, but you feel a tingle like the desert's holding its breath. This isn't just dirt, it's Caral, a city older than Egypt's pyramids, sleeping for nearly 5,000 years. You brush away sand and stone walls emerge precise and ancient whispering of a people who built wonders when the rest of the world was still wandering. As you dig, the truth hits like a thunderbolt. Caral's not a myth. Radiocarbon tests pin it to 2600 BCE, rivaling Mesopotamia's cradle. You uncover plazas, staircases, pyramids, not tombs, but stages for a civilization that thrived without wheels, metal, or war. You hold a knotted kipu, a cotton net, a condor bone flute, each artifact a story of ingenuity and connection. This wasn't a backwater. It was a beacon, a planned city sprawling over 150 acres. Its people trading fish for shells, cotton for stones, ideas for dreams. You stand among the ruins, awed as Caral rewrites history, proving the Americas birthed greatness, long before anyone guessed. It's not just a dig, it's a resurrection, a voice from the sands saying, "We were here, and we were extraordinary." So, grab a trowel, feel the desert's pulse, and let's uncover how this barren valley bloomed into a marvel. Next, we'll explore the Soup Valley's secrets, where a parched land became a cradle of life. You're standing in the Soup Valley, Peru, where the sun hammers down like it's got a grudge, and the desert stretches out a cracked, dusty wasteland that looks like life forgot it. The river's a pitiful thread winding through stones like it's barely hanging on. To most, this place screams desolation, barren, unforgiving, a spot the gods might have skipped. But you're not most people. You're with the ancient Caral folk 400-600 years ago, and they saw something else, a canvas, not a curse. They didn't flinch at the sand or cower at the heat. They rolled up their sleeves and turned this parched valley into a thriving oasis, a testament to human grit and smarts that makes your jaw drop. Their secret weapon, the river. They tamed its seasonal floods with clever irrigation channels coaxing water to fields where nothing should grow. You see green sprouts, cotton beans, squash guava pushing through the dirt like stubborn miracles. Cotton's their gold, spun into nets and cloth traded with coastal villages for fish and shells, tying Caral to a web of far-off communities. Their homes built from stone and earth stand firm against the scorching days and rare, brutal rains. You watch them study the stars, timing harvests with a precision that'd make a modern farmer jealous. This isn't survival by luck, it's mastery, a delicate dance with nature's rhythms. No wheels, no metal, just brains and teamwork turning a desert into a hub of life. You feel the valley's pulse alive with possibility whispering of a people who built greatness where others saw nothing. Next, we'll climb Caral's towering pyramids, marvels that rival the ancient world's wonders. You're in Corral 2600 BCE, standing at the foot of the Pyramid Mare, a massive stone giant rising 60 feet above the Soup Valley's dusty floor. It's not some crude pile of rocks, this is a masterpiece stretching 450 feet long, built with no wheels, no metal tools, just human will and ingenuity. You run your hand over the stones, cut with eerie precision, packed with reed bags full of rubble to shrug off earthquakes that could topple lesser works. These pyramids aren't tombs like Egypt's. They're alive, crowned with temples where fires once blazed under starry skies, reached by grand staircases that pull you upward like a call to the heavens. You feel the weight of a civilization that dreamed big and built bigger. Below, sunken plazas spread out circular and vast like ancient amphitheatres, where thousands gathered for rituals, debates or celebrations. You imagine the crowds, their voices echoing off the stones tied to the cosmos by structures aligned with solstices and stars. Around the pyramids, homes for priests, artisans and farmers fan out, each block planned with a care that screams order and purpose. No war machines here, no blood-stained altars, just a society that poured its soul into building, not destroying. You stand on the pyramid steps, the desert wind whispering of a people who linked earth to sky, community to eternity, all with nothing but stone sweat and vision. It's humbling knowing these weathered stones have outlasted empires still standing after 5,000 years, telling a story of ambition and harmony. Next, we'll uncover how Corral's peace not war defined its greatness, a rare jewel in a world of conflict. You're walking through Corral 2600 BCE, in the Soup Valley's dusty embrace where the stones seem to hum with a quiet ancient truth. Unlike the war-torn ruins of other early civilizations, Corral's different. There's no clatter of weapons, no grim defensive walls, no scars of conquest. You search the sands and find no swords, no arrowheads, no mass graves. This city, sprawling and grand, was built on peace, a rare jewel in a world often carved by blood. You feel it in the air. Corral's people chose to gather, not conquer, pouring their energy into plazas and pyramids that sing of community, not conflict. It's a revelation that makes you pause, awed by a society that thrived through harmony. You see their lifeblood trade, not tribute. Cotton from their irrigated fields spun into nets flows to coastal villages swapped for dried fish and glittering Pacific shells. You trace their networks stretching to the Andes for rare stones, each exchange a thread in a peaceful web that binds distant peoples. Their plazas buzz with life not war councils hosting ceremonies that unite under shared beliefs. You imagine leaders, not warriors, guiding vast projects, pyramids, rising fields, blooming, all without the whip of fear. No fortresses loom, instead open spaces invite connection. Corral's strength wasn't in armies but in cooperation, a stubborn choice to build together rather than tear apart. You stand among the ruins, the desert wind soft, and feel a pang of wonder in a world of swords. Corral chose songs proving civilization can rise on trust, not terror. Next, we'll hear those songs as Corral's music and rituals weave its people into a timeless symphony. You're in Corral 2600 BCE as dusk settles over the Soup Valley, the desert cooling under a sky blazing with stars. The city's alive not with the clash of war but with the pulse of music and ritual, its heartbeat echoing across the sands. You hear flutes carved from condor bones, their keening notes rising like the wind itself, and drums stretched with deer hide thumping low and steady. These aren't mere trinkets, they're crafted with care, tuned to carry across vast plazas, a language of the soul in a world without writing. You stand in a sunken court, its stones amplifying sound like an ancient theatre, and feel the crowd around you, hundreds strong, swaying to the rhythm of something greater. Fires crackle atop the pyramids, their glow-painting priests in woven robes as they chant to the river, the earth, the cosmos. You see feet stamp the ground, voices rise in unison, tying each person to the seasons, the stars, the divine. These rituals aren't just ceremony, they're glue binding Corral's people in shared reverence. The plazas, broad and open, are stages for harvest festivals, solstice rites, moments when the city becomes a symphony. You imagine music drifting through the alleys, flutes and drums weaving stories of creation, of balance, of a world without war's shadow. No blood stains these stones, no gods demand sacrifice, only harmony celebration, a quiet awe for life's cycles. You close your eyes, the desert wind carrying faint echoes of those ancient songs, and feel Corral's spirit, a city that sang its dreams into eternity. Next, we'll marvel at Corral's engineering, a testament to human ingenuity, in a land that defies life, You're standing in Corral 2600 BCE, the Soup Valley's relentless sun baking the earth around you, yet this desert hums with human genius. No wheels, no metal tools, no beasts of burden, just raw ingenuity. And Corral's people built a city that laughs at time itself. You gaze at the Pyramid Maya, a stone titan stretching 450 feet at 60-foot height, defying the sands. Workers hauled massive rocks in woven reed bags, each one a testament to muscle and cleverness, stacking them with rubble-filled cores to shrug off earthquakes that would have crumbled lesser works. You trace the stones, their edges precise, and marvel at how they've stood for nearly 5,000 years, mocking nature's fury with quiet strength. You walk the city's grid, where plazas and homes align with the stars, a cosmic blueprint born from watching solstices and seasons. Their irrigation channels, carved with nothing but sweat and smarts, funnel the river's trickle to fields of cotton and squash turning dust into bounty. These canals aren't haphazard, they're planned, every drop rationed like gold in this parched land. Sunken plazas, circular and perfect double as celestial calendars, tracking the heavens to time harvests. You see residential zones hugging ceremonial spaces, a harmony of function and faith. No war machines clutter this place. It's a city of balance built to last for generations. You feel a shiver not from cold, but from awe. Corral's engineers didn't just survive the desert. They sculpted it into a masterpiece, their stones whispering of a wisdom that modern minds still chase. Next, we'll ponder why this marvel faded its plazas, silenced by the sands of time. You're in Corral 2600, BCE, its pyramids towering over the Soup Valley, their stones alive with the hum of a thriving city. But fast forward and the plazas are empty, the flutes silent, the sands creeping over what was once a beacon of human will. Corral's fall wasn't loud. No fires, no shattered walls, no graves of the conquered. It just faded like a song trailing off, leaving you to wonder why a place so grand could vanish so quietly. You sift through the dust, searching for clues, and the desert whispers possibilities. Maybe a drought strangled the river, starving the fields of cotton and beans that fed Corral's trade. Without surplus, the nets and textiles that bound distant villages unravelled, leaving the city adrift. Or perhaps trade routes shifted new powers, rising along the coast or in greener valleys, luring away the fish and shells that kept Corral's markets alive. You imagine families packing up one by one, chasing stronger rivers, or new beginnings, their children carrying stories of a great city left behind. Could it have been politics, a rift among leaders, or just exhaustion after centuries of wrestling the desert? Without words carved in stone, you're left guessing. But the departure feels gradual, a slow drift rather than a collapse. The winds buried the temples, dunes swallowed the flutes, and Corral slept for 4,000 years, its stones waiting patiently for rediscovery. You stand among the ruins, the silence heavy, and feel the fragility of even the greatest dreams. Corral teaches you that no civilization, no matter how wise, is immune to time's quiet pull. Yet its legacy endures, a whisper of peace and possibility beneath the sands. Picture yourself in Boston 1773, where the air's sharp with winter chill and sharper with rebellion. You're not sipping tea by a cosy fire. You're in a city buzzing with defiance, where every cobblestone seems to hum with anger against the British Crown. The Tea Act's the latest insult, a law that's less about tea and more about Britain flexing its muscle, slapping a tax on your morning brew to remind you who's boss. It's not just the coin, it's the principle, the idea that a distant king can reach into your pocket without asking. You and your neighbours, ordinary folks, bakers, blacksmiths, dock workers, are done with it. You've boycotted, you've protested, but now the stakes are higher. 3 ships loaded with East India Company tea sit heavy in the harbour, their cargo a ticking time bomb of colonial resentment. You feel the tension in the taverns, hear it in the whispers at the market. The Sons of Liberty, Those firebrands of freedom are stirring folks up, and you're caught in the middle, proud, scared and itching to do something. The Governor Thomas Hutchinson, loyal to the king, won't budge. He's ordered the ships to stay put, tea and all, until the tax is paid. To you, it's not just a few crates, it's your rights, your dignity, your future on the line. The cold bites your knuckles as you stand on the wharf, watching the ships bob in the dark water, their masts creaking like a warning. Something's got to give, and you know it's coming soon. This isn't just about tea anymore. It's about drawing a line in the sand, or rather in the icy harbour. So grab your cloak, maybe smear some soot on your face for what's coming, because Boston's about to make history. Next we'll step into the Old South Meeting House, where the crowd's ready to turn words into action. You're packed into Boston's Old South Meeting House, December 16th, 1773, shoulder to shoulder with thousands of colonists, the air thick with sweat rage and the faint tang of winter salt. The room's a furnace of voices, every shout and murmur fueled by the tea act's galling injustice. You've walked miles through icy mud to be here, your breath fogging in the cold, because this isn't just a meeting, it's a reckoning. Samuel Adams, that iron-willed rebel, stands at the helm, his voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. Speaker after speaker rises, denouncing the king's taxes, the East India Company's monopoly, the whole rotten idea of a distant parliament controlling your life. You cheer until your throats roar, but there's a knot in your gut. Action sounds bold, but Wall's shadow looms large. Outside, the streets are crammed with folks who couldn't fit inside, straining to catch every word. News trickles in Governor Hutchinson's holding firm, refusing to let the tea ships leave without unloading. The crowd's fury crackles like a storm about to break. You're not a soldier, maybe just a shopkeeper or farmer, but you feel the weight of the moment. Adams speaks calm but final. This meeting can do nothing more to save the country. It's no speech, it's a signal. A war whoop splits the air outside sharp as a musket shot. You know what's next. Faces around you harden, some smearing soot, others grabbing blankets and feathers not to hide but to become something new, symbols of defiance. The meeting's over. Words are spent. You step into the twilight, heart pounding, ready to join the march to the harbour where the tea and history awaits. Next we'll follow those shadowy figures to the ships where Boston's rebellion takes shape in the cold night air. It's twilight in Boston, December 16th and 1773, and you're slipping through the streets, heart thumping like a drum. The cold bites your face, but it's nothing compared to the fire in your chest. You're no soldier, just a cooper, maybe a tailor, but tonight you're part of something bigger. You smear soot across your cheeks, drape a rough blanket over your shoulders, tuck a feather in your cap, not to fool anyone but to shout defiance without saying a word. You're not you anymore, you're a symbol, a shadow moving toward Griffin's Wharf, where the Dartmouth Eleanor and Beaver sit heavy with tea. 342 chests of it, the king's smug tax in every leaf. The harbour's dark water churns below sharp with winter's edge, but there's no chaos, no drunken mob. This is a mission quiet and fierce. You join dozens of others' faces blackened, moving like ghosts through the gloom. No one's shouting, it's all whispers and nods, a shared pulse of purpose. The ships loom ahead, their crews outnumbered and silent, stepping aside as you board. You're not here to hurt anyone, just the tea that hated emblem of Britain's grip. Hatchets gleam in the dim light clubs, ready in calloused hands. You're not thinking about tomorrow's consequences, just the weight of those crates, and the line you're drawing in the icy night. The crowd on the wharf watches hushed as you and your comrades swarm the decks, ready to turn words into action. It's not a riot. It's a statement carved in the cold, deliberate strokes of rebellion. Boston's holding its breath, and you're about to make history. Next, we'll dive into the moment those chests hit the water, transforming the harbour into a swirling teapot of revolution. You're on the deck of the Dartmouth, the night air sharp as a blade, the harbour's chill seeping through your soot-streaked blanket. It's December 16th and 1773, and you're surrounded by fellow colonists, all disguised, all moving with a purpose that feels like a heartbeat. Your hatchet bites into a wooden tea chest, the crack echoing like a gunshot in the quiet. The rich, earthy scent of tea spills out, mixing with the salty tang of the harbour, as you and others heave the crates overboard. They hit the water with heavy splashes, 342 chests in all their leaves, swirling into the dark waves like a storm of defiance. This isn't chaos. It's precision, every swing and toss calculated to destroy only the tea, that symbol of Britain's overreach. The crowd on Griffin's Wharf stands silent, awed, as the harbour turns into a giant swirling teapot. No one steals a thing, not a single crate, not a scrap of cargo. This isn't about profit, it's about principle. The British guards nearby don't move, maybe confused, maybe sympathetic, or just wary of the crowd's quiet fury. You work fast, your breath fogging and the cold muscles burning as chest after chest sinks. The ship's crews watch helpless as their cargo vanishes into the black water. By the time you're done, thousands of pounds of tea float in great mats staining the harbour like a bold signature. You slip back into the alleys, leaving no names, only the unmistakable mark of rebellion. Boston's still the night heavy with what you've done, a line crossed a spark lit. Next we'll wake to the morning after, where the city buzzes with pride, fear, and the weight of what's to come. It's dawn in Boston, December 17th of 1773, and you wake to a city transformed. The harbour reeks of salty tea, its waters still swirling with the wreckage of 342 chests dumped last night. You step outside your boots crunching on frost, and feel the air crackle with whispers and wide-eyed stares. News of the tea party spreads like a spark in dry-grass taverns. Hum apprentices gossip and broadsheets fly from printers' hands. You're no hero, just one of the soot-streaked shadows who boarded the ships, but there's pride in your chest, fierce and warm, knowing you struck a blow against the king's tyranny. Patriots toast the act, their voices loud with defiance, calling it a stand for liberty that'll echo across the colonies, but not everyone's cheering. Loyalists clutch their teacups, horrified at the destruction, muttering about reckless rebels crossing a line. Moderates wring their hands, fearing the crown's wrath. Will this spark war? Governor Hutchinson rages in his mansion, his pen scratching furious letters to London, branding you and your comrades traitors. The Sons of Liberty patrol the docks, scolding anyone who dares scoop soggy tea leaves from the water. This isn't about salvage, it's about sending a message. The harbour's a giant teapot, its black waves a testament to your resolve. You hear murmurs of what's next. Will Britain ignore this, or come down hard? In the market eyes meet with knowing glances, a shared sense that something's shifted irreversible. Boston's no longer just a port town, it's a symbol, a fuse lit in the cold morning light waiting for the explosion. Next, we'll face the Crown's fury as Britain's retaliation turns defiance into a rallying cry. You're in Boston weeks after the Tea Party and the air's thick with dread. Words reach London and King George III's fury is colder than the January wind. You hear it in the taverns, Parliament's not letting this slide. The Boston Tea Party wasn't just a protest, it was a slap to the Crown's face, and now the hammer's falling. The intolerable acts, they call them a name that sticks like ice in your gut. First comes the Boston Port Act, a gut punch that shuts the harbour tight. No ships in, no ships out until the tea's paid for. The docks, once alive with shouts and sails, go eerily quiet, trade choked off like a noose. Your neighbour, a fishmonger, stares at empty nets, wondering how to feed his kids. It doesn't stop there. The Massachusetts Government Act yanks away your colony's right to govern itself, handing power to the king's men. The Justice Act lets royal officials skip local trials shipped off to Britain where they'll walk free, and then British soldiers march in redcoats quartered in your homes, their boots heavy on your floorboards, a reminder that rebellion has a price. You feel the Crown's message defy us and will crush you. But something unexpected happens. Instead of cowering, the other colonies rally. Wagons roll in from Virginia, Pennsylvania, loaded with grainfish and letters of defiance. You read them by candlelight, heart-swelling. Boston's not alone. The king thought he'd break you, make an example of your city. Instead, he's made you a martyr, a spark that's catching fire from Georgia to New Hampshire. You whisper of unity of resistance, knowing the fight's just begun. Next, we'll see how this punishment forged a new American spirit, binding colonies into a force Britain can't ignore. You're standing in Boston, 1774, the harbour silent under the weight of the intolerable acts, its docks choked by Britain's wrath. Your city's a ghost of itself. Shops shuttered, families scraping by, redcoats glaring from every corner. You expected the other colonies to shrink back, scared off by Parliament's iron fist, but instead something miraculous stirs. From Virginia's tobacco fields to New Hampshire's rocky shores, wagons creak into Boston piled high, with food sacks of corn barrels of fish-smoked meat from Carolina farms. You read letters by flickering lamplight, words of fury and solidarity scrawled by strangers who call you kin. The punishment meant to crush you has lit a fire, turning scattered colonies into a single defiant pulse. In September, you hear of the First Continental Congress, a gathering in Philadelphia, where men like George Washington and Samuel Adams Names once distant stand shoulder to shoulder. They're not kings or generals, just farmers, lawyers, merchants, but they speak for you for all 13 colonies. You learn they vowed to boycott British goods to stand as one against the Crown's next blow. Taverns buzz with new words, unity, liberty whispered like prayers over tankards of ale. You feel it in your bones, Boston's fight is everyone's now. If the king can choke one colony, he can choke them all, and that truth binds you tighter than any law. Militias drill in town squares, muskets gleaming in the autumn chill, and you know the time for petitions is fading. Britain wanted to make Boston a warning. Instead, they've forged a nation raw and fierce, ready to rise from the ashes of a silenced harbour. Next, we'll journey to a desert where an ancient city whispers of peace older than empires. Alright, you're cosy, right? Fan humming lights dim, maybe a hint of rain tapping your window here in 2025. Let's slip way back before cities or scrolls to a time when humans were just figuring out how to say, "This is me." We're talking jewellery, raw primal, the first spark of human identity. Not gold or glitter, but shells, bones and stones strung together by hands that knew hunger and cold. As you settle in, picture a world lit by firelight, where every bead tells a story. If this vibe's pulling you in, hit that like button, subscribe and drop a comment. Where are you at? 5:07 p.m, Sunday, June 22, 2025. Love knowing who's sharing this journey. Imagine a cave in what's now Morocco 100,000 years ago. The air smells of damp earth and smoke, the ground littered with fish bones. A group huddles near a fire, their faces etched by wind and survival. One of them, maybe a woman with calloused fingers, threads tiny nacreous shells onto sinew, each one pierced with care. These aren't just trinkets, they're a leap, a sign of something new. Those 33 beads found by archaeologists scream, "We're more than just alive." They're necklaces, maybe anklets worn to say I belong or I'm strong or even I'm sacred. No mirrors, no selfies, but these shells are their Instagram shouting identity into the void. Back then, jewellery wasn't about vanity, it was survival's sidekick. Picture a hunter, his breath fogging in the dawn, a necklace of wolf teeth clattering against his chest. Each tooth's a story, a killer risk, a triumph. Or a mother her baby strapped to her back, wearing a string of shells traded from some far-off shore, a nod to her kin or her gods. In burial sites across Europe and Africa, skeletons lie with beads around wrists, necks, ankles carefully placed like a map to the afterlife. Even nomads, lugging just what they could carry, made time to carve polished paint. You can almost hear the scrape of stone on bone, the quiet focus of crafting something that matters. As you drift towards sleep, think of those first beads glinting in the firelight, proof that humans have always craved meaning. From caves to catwalks, jewellery's been our silent language, identity, belief, beauty. These prehistoric souls with their rough hands and fierce hearts started it all. Rest now, knowing their spark still shines, and we'll keep chasing it through time. Let's glide into the cradle of civilization where rivers carve life into deserts, and humans start dreaming big. It's Mesopotamia and Egypt thousands of years ago, where jewellery isn't just adornment, it's power, prayer, and a piece of the divine. The air's thick with dust and incense, the clink of hammers shaping gold. As you sink deeper into your pillow, the fans hum, a steady pulse. Picture these ancient artisans, their hands weaving stories into metal and stone. You with me on this Sunday evening, June 22nd, 2025. Drop a comment with your spot and time. Let's make this a global fireside chat. In Mesopotamia, think Sumer, Akkad, Babylon, the Tigris and Euphrates breathe life into mud brick cities. Here, gold's not just shiny, it's a language of kings and gods. Picture a priestess, her headdress heavy with carnelian and lapis lazuli glinting in a temple's torchlight. Each bead's a prayer, each spiral a nod to eternal life. Women of status wear bracelets, pendants, their graves stuffed with jewels to carry wealth into the afterlife. You can almost smell the cedar oil, hear the rustle of her robes as she moves her jewellery, saying, "I'm chosen by gods and men." Even statues of deities get blinged out, their gold eyes staring into eternity, a reminder that power sparkles. Now swing over to Egypt, where the Nile's a lifeline and gold's the flesh of the gods. Imagine a pharaoh, his broad collar gleaming with turquoise and garnet, each gem picked for its magic. The scarab beetle carved into amulets promises rebirth. The anchor looped like a cross whispers life forever. You can see a child, maybe royal, clutching a protective charm, its eye of Horus warding off evil. Even the dead get decked out. Mummies wrapped in headdresses toe caps their journey to the afterlife paved with bling. Artisans, their fingers nimble, work under flickering lamps, knowing each piece isn't just worn, it's sacred, a spell against chaos. As you drift off, hold this close: in Mesopotamia and Egypt, jewellery was more than status. It was a bridge to the divine, a story etched in gold. These ancient souls with their glittering dreams wove meaning into every bead, a legacy that still catches the light. Sleep well, knowing we're just starting to unravel this shimmering thread through history. Let's sail to the sun-drenched shores of the Mediterranean, where ancient Greece and Rome hum with marble myth and ambition. The air's sharp with olive oil and sea salt, the clatter of sandals on stone paths. Here, jewellery isn't just decoration. It's a declaration of who you are, what you believe, and sometimes who you'll fight for. As you nestle into your cosy spot, the fans hum, weaving a gentle spell this Sunday evening, June 22nd, 2025 at 5:10 p.m. Picture artisans hammering gold under starlit skies. Loving this vibe? Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment. Where are you and what's the clock saying? Let's make this a global campfire. In Greece, beauty's a philosophy and jewellery's its poetry. Imagine a woman in Athens, her hair pinned with a gold wreath shaped like olive leaves, sacred to Athena. It's not just pretty, it's balance, enhancing her natural grace without stealing the show. Earrings dangle with tiny owls, their repoussé work glinting in the agora's bustle. You can almost hear the marketplace chatter, smell roasted figs as she moves her bracelets, etched with scenes of Aphrodite rising from the sea. Gems like carnelian believed to soothe anger, or amethyst guarding against a wild nightad meaning. Intaglios engraved stones double as seals pressed into wax to sign a deal, tying beauty to power. Now Rome, where opulence rules. Picture a senator's wife, her neck draped in pearls from the Persian Gulf, emeralds from Egypt sparkling on her fingers. Her fibular brooch pinning her stola is a riot of sapphires from Sri Lanka shouting wealth louder than words. Men aren't left out. Think a soldier's signet ring carved with his family crest, or an emperor slipping on a charm of Hercules hidden under his toga for luck. Even kids wear bulle lockets stuffed with amulets to fend off evil spirits. You can see a freed slave, now a citizen, flashing a gold ring, his pride louder than the Colosseum's roar. Jewellery's a biography here, telling tales of conquest, faith, or freedom. As you drift towards sleep, hold this: in Greece and Rome, every bead, every gem was a story, love, loyalty, or a prayer against fate. These ancient souls with their glittering lives made jewellery a language we still speak. Rest easy knowing this thread still weaving, sparkling through time. Now let's journey east to India and beyond, where jewellery's not just worn, it's a sacred song, a prayer etched in gold and jade. The air's heavy with jasmine and spice, the jingle of anklets on dusty paths. From ancient Indus Valley cities to China's silk-draped courts, adornment here is a language of the soul tying body to spirit. As you sink deeper into your pillow, the fans hum a soft mantra at 5:10 p.m. June 22nd, 2025. Picture artisans crafting under flickering lamps. Digging this? Like, subscribe and comment. Where are you vibing from tonight? In India, jewellery's scripture. Imagine a woman in 2500 BCE, her wrists clinking with carnelian bangles, a nose ring glinting in the sun. Gold tied to Lakshmi, goddess of prosperity, isn't just wealth, it's divine armour. You can see her at a wedding, her forehead shimmering with a mangtika believed to wake her sixth chakra. Anklets sing with each step, bangles hum harmony, and toe rings whisper marital vows. Men shine too, kings with gem-studded turbans, warriors with talismans blessed for battle. Picture a market, the air thick with curry and chatter, where a bride's dowry glitters, not just as riches, but as her worth, her shield. Every piece from mere jhumkas to necklaces tells of love, fertility, or gods. Swing to China and Southeast Asia, where jade's the star, cool, eternal, a slice of immortality. Imagine a scholar, his pendant carved with a lotus believed to guard his spirit. Dragons curl on nobles' belts, phoenixes dangle from women's hairpins, each stone a prayer for harmony. You can almost hear the clink of jade beads in a temple smell incense curling skyward. From birth to burial, jade's there guiding souls to the next world. Across the East jewellery is not just bling, it's a vow, a shield, a poem worn close to the heart. As you drift off, hold this in India, and the East jewellery was life itself, sacred, storied, eternal. These artisans, with their deft hands and dreaming hearts, wove a legacy that still sings. Sleep well, knowing this glittering path stretches on its light unbroken. Let's wander from the medieval mists into the dazzle of today, where jewellery evolves from holy relics to personal stories sparkling on every wrist. Picture Europe's candlelit abbeys fading into the glow of Renaissance workshops, then the flash of modern cities. The air shifts from incense to the buzz of electric tools, and adornment becomes a dance of faith, art and identity. As you cosy up at 5:11 p.m, Sunday, June 27th, 2025, the fans hum a soft guide. Let's trace this glittering arc, loving this hit that like button subscribe and comment where are you and what's the time. Let's make this a global vibe. In medieval Europe, jewellery is a prayer. Imagine a knight, his armour clanking, a cross pendant tucked against his chest, its relic a saint's bone whispering protection. Kings wear sapphire crowns, their blue a nod to divine wisdom. Queens pin ruby brooches bold as passion. You can hear the clink of rosary beads, pearls strung tight, each one a plea to heaven. Even peasants knot cords with bone charms, their faith humble but fierce. But then the Renaissance hits like a sunrise. Picture a Florentine goldsmith, his hand steady, crafting a cameo for a merchant's wife, its carved face a nod to ancient Rome. Gems bloom in symmetrical splendour, enamels glow like stained glass jewellery's now art shouting, sophistication louder than any sermon. Fast forward to the 19th century, where Victoria's England turns jewellery sentimental. Imagine a widow, her black dress rustling a locket of her husband's hair pinned close. Engagement rings catch on diamonds, winking promises. Mass production lets a shop girl afford a tin brooch her own slice of shine. By the 20th century, it's a free-for-all Art Deco's sharp lines, disco's gold chains, punk's safety pins screaming rebellion. Today, jewellery's whatever you make it. Lab-grown diamonds, pride pins, or a bead from your grand's attic. Picture a street market, the air ripe with coffee and chatter, where a teen picks a zodiac pendant claiming their story. It's not just bling, it's you worn loud. As you drift off, hold this from medieval crosses to Instagram trending charms. Jewellery's been our mirror faith love defiance. These makers from monks to TikTok artisans tied us to something bigger. Sleep well, knowing this story's still sparkling as alive as the pulse under your skin. Now let's dive into a different kind of story, one that hums with mystery and whispers of the ancient world. Picture the shimmering coast of southern Italy near modern Naples, where the sea laps at ruins older than memory. This is Baiae, once Rome's playground of pleasure, now half sunk, its secrets guarded by waves and steam. As you settle in at 5:11 p.m, Sunday, June 27th, 2025, the fans hum, a soothing tide. Imagine a place where emperors partied and myths took root. Digging this vibe? Like, subscribe and drop a comment. Where are you chilling and what's the clock saying? Let's explore this sunken world together. Baiae wasn't just a city. It was a fever dream of luxury built on the restless Campi Flegrae, a volcanic caldera where the earth breathes sulphur and hisses heat. Picture marble villas clinging to cliffs, their mosaics glinting under a relentless sun. The air's thick with wine roses and that metallic tang of hot springs. Emperors like Nero and Caesar had pads here, their parties legendary think togas. Slipping poets reciting deals struck in steamy bathhouses. You can almost hear the laughter, the clink of goblets as Rome's elite escaped the capital's grind. Seneca called it a vortex of vice, but for those invited it was paradise. Yet Baiae's beauty was its curse. The same volcanic magic that warmed its baths shifted the ground beneath it. Over centuries the sea crept in, swallowing temples, gardens and grand promenades. Today divers swim past marble columns. Fish, darting through sunken courtyards, the city frozen like a ghost under glass. But one spot stands out, a chamber carved into volcanic rock, half drowned, steaming with legend. They call it the Oracle Tomb, and some say it's no tomb at all, but a gateway to the underworld itself, where the veil between life and death thins to a whisper. As you drift towards sleep, hold this image: Baiai's glittering ruins, half lost to the sea, hiding a chamber that still feels alive. This isn't just history, it's a riddle, a place where myth might still breathe. Rest now knowing we're about to dive deeper, where the stones themselves seem to speak. Let's linger in Baiai, where the sea cradles Rome's lost playground, and the earth hums with secrets. It's the 1960s now, the air sharp with salt and the buzz of discovery, as a quiet man unearths a chamber that whispers of myth. This is the Oracle Tomb, a place where history and mystery collide. As you settle in at 5:14 p.m. Sunday, June 22, 2025, your fans hum a gentle wave. Picture this moment, a tunnel into the past lit by curiosity. Loving this? Like, subscribe and comment. Where are you at and what's the time? Let's dig into this tale together. Picture Robert Paget, not some Indiana Jones, but a British civil engineer with a knack for the ancient. No fame, no fanfare, just a guy with a hunch and a trowel. In the mid-60s, he and his mate Keith Jones, plus a scrappy team of volunteers, start poking around Baiai's ruins near the old Roman baths. The ground's a mess, volcanic soil, tangled roots, but ancient texts and geological maps nudge them on. They find a narrow passage, stone-lined, snaking into the hillside. At first, it's just another Roman relic, maybe an aqueduct. But as they crawl deeper, the air shifts cooler, heavier, with a whiff of sulphur that stings the nose. This isn't just a tunnel, it's a stage. The passage twists, the light fades, and benches carved into the rock hint at rituals, people pausing, maybe praying as they descended. You can almost hear their boots scuffing, their breaths quickening. The deeper they go, the weirder it gets. Sudden drops, steamy humidity, and a final chamber half flooded with black water steam curling like ghosts. Paget's pulse must have raced. This wasn't a tomb for bones, but a portal. Maybe the antrim of legend tied to the Cumaean Sibyl Apollo's priestess. It matches Virgil's tales in the Aeneid, a dark path to the underworld, fumes and all. The stones feel alive, like they've been waiting. As you drift off, hold this: Paget's find, scoffed at by stuffy academics, was a crack in time, a glimpse into Rome's wild heart. The Oracle Tomb isn't just a ruin, it's a question daring us to wonder what truths lie buried. Sleep well, knowing we're about to chase those whispers deeper. Now let's step into the haze of Roman myth, where gods and shadows dance and a single voice could shake an empire. We're in Baiai's orbit near Lake Avernus, a volcanic crater the Romans swore was the gate to Hades. Here lives the Cumaean Sibyl Apollo's priestess, her prophecies as potent as the fumes she breathed. As you sink into your pillow at 5:14 p.m. June 22, 2025, the fans hum, a mystic chant picture. This woman, her words echoing through time. Vibe with this? Like, subscribe, and tell me where are you and what's the clock saying. Let's unravel this legend. Imagine the Sibyl, not some fairy tale oracle, but a flesh and blood seer, her cave near Baiai's steaming cliffs. The air's thick with sulphur birds dropping dead over Avernus's cursed waters. She's old legend says Apollo gave her 1,000 years, but forgot eternal youth, so she's withered, her voice a rasp from the earth's depths. You can see her eyes wild, swaying in a trance, volcanic vapours twisting her mind. Her prophecies aren't neat, they're cryptic, terrifying, like riddles carved in smoke. Generals knelt before her poets like Virgil immortalised her, and pilgrims feared her cave where the veil between worlds felt tissue thin. In the Aeneid, Virgil paints her guiding Aeneas into Hades, down a passage hot with fumes shadows pressing close. Picture it, a tunnel like Baiai's Oracle Tomb, its darkness swallowing light, the drip of unseen water loud as a heartbeat. The Sibyl's voice bounces off stone, half human, half divine, promising truths no one's ready for. Was she real? Maybe a priestess, maybe a myth spun from Baiai's eerie geology. But Romans didn't split hairs, myth was reality. Her cave, where the Baiais or nearby Cumes, was no metaphor. It was a door to the dead where you might hear your fate or lose your nerve. As you drift towards sleep, hold this: the Sibyl's story tied to Baiai's strange stones blurs history and dream. She's not just a figure, she's Rome's pulse. It's fear and awe of what lies beyond. Rest now, knowing this myth still breathes its echo waiting in the tomb's dark heart. Let's plunge deeper into Baiai's Oracle Tomb, where the earth itself seems to whisper secrets. It's a place carved not just from volcanic rock, but from the Roman mind designed to pull you from the sunlit world into something darker, stranger. The air's heavy with sulphur and mystery, and every step feels like a ritual. As you settle in at 5:15 p.m, Sunday, June 27th, 2025, your fans hum a steady guide. Picture this tunnel, its stones alive with intent. Digging this vibe? Like, subscribe and drop a comment. Where are you chilling and what's the time? Let's walk this ancient path together. Imagine standing at the tomb's entrance, the sea's salty breath mixing with Baiai's volcanic heat. The passage starts wide, light filtering in, but then it twists sharp, deliberate, cutting you off from the world above. You can feel the walls closing in the air, warming the ground slick with condensation. Benches carved into the rock invite a pause, maybe for prayer, maybe to steel your nerves. This isn't just a tunnel, it's a journey engineered to unsettle. Halfway down, a vertical shaft pumps sulphuric fumes, the earth's own breath stinging your eyes and fogging your mind. You can almost hear the hiss like the gods themselves are exhaling. Then comes the plunge, a narrow staircase dropping to a final chamber half flooded with inky water. Picture torchlight dancing on the ceiling, steam curling from the pool like spirits rising. It's quiet, too quiet, the kind of hush that makes your heart beat loud. Some say this pool mirrors the Styx, the mythic river between life and death. The chamber's no accident. It's a stage built to blur reality and myth. Maybe a priestess hid in an alcove, her voice echoing prophecies, or maybe the fumes alone spun visions. Either way you leave, change the weight of the underworld clinging to you like damp wool. As you drift off, hold this, the Oracle Tomb's genius isn't its stone, it's the way it reshapes your soul. Let's linger in Baiai's strange glow where Rome's decadence and dread intertwine. The Oracle Tomb isn't just a ruin, it's a window into a world where myth and reality weren't separate, where a cave could be a god's doorstep. The air hums with the tang of sulphur and the weight of ancient belief. As you sink into your pillow at 5:15 p.m. June 27th, 2025, the fans hum a quiet pulse picture. Romans trembling before this place, their lives shaped by its mystery. Loving this, like, subscribe and tell me where are you and what's the clock saying. Let's unravel this ancient mindset. Picture Baiai in its prime, a glittering escape for Rome's elite. Villas sprawl along cliffs, their mosaics catching the sun while thermal baths bubble with volcanic heat. This is the Campi Flegrae, the burning fields where the ground shifts and steams, and Romans saw the divine in every crack. The Oracle Tomb tucked near these baths wasn't built for show, it was sacred, maybe forbidden. To Romans, the underworld wasn't a story. It was real, a realm of shades reachable through places like this. You can imagine a senator, his toga crisp, stepping into the tunnel, heart pounding, seeking answers from the Cumaean Sibyl or the spirits beyond. The tomb's purpose is murky, maybe a cult's ritual space, maybe a theatre for prophecy. Think of pilgrims, their sandals scuffing stone, descending to face their fears or futures. Virgil's Aeneid describes a similar cave near Lake Avernus, where Aeneas met the Sibyl, her words carried by fumes. The tomb's design, its bends, its heat, its watery end matches that tale too closely to dismiss. Was it built to mimic myth, or did it birth the stories? Either way, it was a machine of awe, turning doubt into dread, questions into visions. As you drift off, hold this, the Oracle Tomb wasn't just stone, it was Rome's soul, a place where faith and fear met, leaving echoes we still hear. Let's stand one last time at Baiai's edge, where the sea whispers over sunken marble, and the Oracle Tomb hums with unanswered questions. This isn't just a ruin, it's a riddle carved in stone, a place where Rome's dreams and fears still linger. The air's salty, tinged with sulphur, and the mystery's as thick as the steam. As you cozy up at 5:17 p.m, Sunday, June 22nd, 2025, your fans hum, a soft echo of the tide. Picture this site, quiet but alive. Digging this? Like, subscribe and drop a comment. Where are you at and what's the time? Let's close this chapter with wonder. Picture the tomb today, its entrance modest, tucked into a hillside, ignored by tourists chasing Pompeii's flashier ruins. Divers glide past Baiai's underwater villas, but few venture here where the tunnel waits damp and still. Those who do feel it a tightening in the chest, a hush that wraps the senses. The stones worn by time hold their secrets tight, but they speak if you listen. Robert Paget's 1960s find, once mocked by scholars, now draws fresh eyes. With radar and 3D maps, researchers see the tomb's precision, its curves, its heat, its pool not as chance but as genius, a space built to shift souls whether through fumes or faith. What makes this place unforgettable isn't just its engineering, it's the why. Was it a cult's hideout, a stage for the Cumean Sibyl's trance, or Rome's attempt to touch the divine picture a pilgrim, 2,000 years ago emerging from that dark chamber eyes, wide changed by something they couldn't name? The tomb's legacy isn't answers, it's questions eternal as the waves lapping Baiai's ruins. It reminds us Romans feared what lay beneath building shrines to tame it, yet craved its truths. As you drift off, hold this: the Oracle Tomb's not just history, it's a mirror reflecting our own ache for meaning, our dance with the unknown. Sleep well, knowing its whisper endures, waiting for those who dare to hear. Now let's shift gears to a modern legend, a story of grit and grace that starts in the heart of struggle. We're in Columbus, Ohio, 1997, where a girl named Simone Biles enters a world that's anything but easy. Her spark, though, is unstoppable, lighting a path from chaos to glory. As you settle in at 5:17 p.m, Sunday, June 27th, 2025, the fans hum a steady beat, picture a kid whose flips would one day flip the world. Loving this tale? Like, subscribe and comment where are you and what's the clock saying. Let's tumble into Simone's story. Imagine a small apartment, the air heavy with uncertainty, where Simone's born to a mom battling addiction. Life's rough foster care bounces her and her siblings through unfamiliar beds, their days a blur of change. You can see a tiny Simone, barely 3, her eyes bright, despite the weight clutching her sister's hand. But love steps in. Her grandparents Ron and Nellie Biles take her in, adopting her and her sister Adria in Houston, Texas. Picture their home, warm with the smell of Nellie's cooking, where Simone finds safety structure and a laugh that fills rooms. To her, Ron and Nellie aren't just guardians, they're mom and dad, her rock. Then one day, a daycare trip changes everything. Picture a gym, the air sharp with chalk dust, where 6-year-old Simone watches gymnasts flip and soar. Her body can't stay still. She mimics them on the sidelines, her cartwheels wild but fierce. A coach spotting that raw fire hands her a note: get this kid in classes. From that moment, gymnastics isn't just play, it's purpose. You can see her small but mighty bounding onto mats, her grin brighter than the gym's lights. Her power's explosive, her balance uncanny, and her joy, it's pure rocket fuel. As you drift off, hold this: Simone Biles, born into storm, found her spark in a gym, flipping pain into possibility. Sleep well, knowing this kid's just getting started. Let's stick with Simone Biles, zooming into the early 2000s in Houston, Texas, where a kid's raw spark ignites into something fierce. The air's thick with gym chalk and the thump of mats, a world where sweat and dreams collide. Simone's not just flipping for fun anymore, she's carving a path to greatness, one tumble at a time. As you settle in at 5:18 p.m, Sunday, June 22nd, 2025, your fans hum a steady rhythm. Picture this tiny dynamo, her grin lighting up the grind. Digging this? Like, subscribe and drop a comment: where are you at and what's the vibe tonight? Let's dive into her rise. Imagine Bannon's gymnastics, a buzzing hive of flips and falls where young Simone barely 8 bounds in her ponytail bouncing. She's small, just 4'8" in her teens, but her power's huge, like a firecracker in sneakers. Coaches spot it: fast, explosive strength, a balance that defies gravity, and that rare air awareness, knowing exactly where her body is mid-twist. You can see her muscles taut, launching off a vault, spinning so fast it's a blur. But it's not just talent, it's grit. Simone trains hard. Her hands calloused, her knees creaking like a bag of marbles after hours of drills. She loves it though, her laugh echoing when she nails a move. Enter Amy Borman, her coach and anchor. Picture Amy calm but firm, guiding Simone not just through routines, but through growing up. She's not a drill sergeant, she's a partner, teaching Simone to channel nerves into power, doubt into focus. Their bond's tight, built on trust and pizza nights. Simone's homeschooled to fit training, but her life's not all gym. She's a kid giggling with siblings, sneaking backflips in the backyard, grounded by her parents Ron and Nellie, whose love keeps her steady. By 14, she's a junior elite, Her routine's packed with moves that make jaws drop, twists and flips most won't touch. You can hear the crowd's gasp, feel the mat spring as she lands solid as stone. As you drift off, hold this Simone's rise wasn't luck. It was work, joy, and a quiet fire no one could douse. From a Houston gym to the world's edge, she's building something bigger than medals. Sleep well knowing this kid's about to shake the planet. Now let's rock it to 2013, where Simone Biles isn't just a kid in a leotard, she's a force ready to flip the gymnastics world upside down. The air's electric in Antwerp, Belgium at the World Artistic Gymnastics Championships, where a 16-year-old steps onto the global stage and doesn't just shine, she blazes. As you sink into your cosy spot at 5:18 p.m, June 22nd, 2025, the fans hum, a soft cheer. Picture this teen's small but mighty rewriting history. Loving this? Like, subscribe and comment where are you vibing from tonight, let's soar with Simone. Imagine the arena lights glaring, the crowd's roar a living thing. Simone barely 4'8" walks out, her smile bright, but her eyes locked in. She's a senior elite now, no longer a junior playing it safe. Her routines are wild, tumbling passes that defy physics, twists so fast they blur. You can feel the mat shudder as she lands solid as a rock, her power making veterans blink. She's not just good, she's untouchable. Her moves so daring they push the sport's limits. Picture her on floor music, pulsing, her signature flips exploding like fireworks. She bags 2 golds, including the all-around title, a crown no American woman's worn so young. This isn't just a win, it's a wake-up call. Commentators stammer, searching for words. She's not human, they joke, but it's more than skill. It's presence. Simone competes with joy, dancing between moves, her confidence a quiet roar. You can see her teammates cheering, the crowd on its feet, sensing they're watching a revolution. From 2013 to 2016, she keeps climbing 3 straight world all-around titles, a feat no woman's matched. Her scores soar, her routines tougher each year, yet she makes the impossible look like a warm-up. The gym world's shifting old ideas of delicate grace giving way to power personality, Simone's brand of real. As you drift towards sleep, hold this: Simone's breakthrough wasn't just medals, it was a new blueprint for greatness. She didn't just win, she redefined what winning means, her spark now a global flame. Rest easy knowing she's just warming up for the world's biggest stage. Let's soar to the summer of 2016, where Rio de Janeiro pulses with samba sweat and the electric hum of the Olympics. Simone Biles, now 19, isn't just a gymnast, she's a phenomenon ready to etch her name in history. The air's thick with chalk dust and anticipation, the arena, a cauldron of cheers. As you settle in at 5:20 p.m, Sunday, June 22nd, 2025, your fans hum a steady beat. Picture this tiny titan owning the world's biggest stage. Digging this? Like, subscribe and comment where are you at and what's the vibe tonight. I'm tuning in from Vietnam, 5:20 p.m. Let's share this moment. Imagine the Rio Olympic arena lights blazing, the crowd a sea of flags. Simone strides out, 4'8" of pure power, her leotard sparkling like she's wrapped in stars. Expectations are sky high, she's the favourite, the one to beat. But she doesn't just meet them, she shatters them. You can feel the mat quake as she launches into her vault, twisting through the air like gravity's taking a coffee break. Her floor routine set to pulsing music is a masterclass. Her signature move, the Biles a double layout with a half twist, lands so clean it's like she's mocking physics. She grabs 4 golds team all-around vault floor and a bronze on beam, the most medals by an American gymnast in a single game since 1984. But it's not just what she wins, it's how. Simone competes with a joy that lights up the arena, her smile a defiance of pressure. Picture her laughing with teammates the final 5 as they dominate the team event. Their hugs tighter than their grips on the bars. Off the mat, she's grounded, goofy selfies, press conferences where she credits her parents, Ron and Nelly, and her faith. You can hear the crowd roar, commentators grasping for words, she's rewriting the sport. As the first black woman to win Olympic all-round gold, she's not just breaking records, she's breaking barriers. Her presence a beacon for kids who see themselves in her. As you drift off, hold this: Simone's Rio triumph wasn't just medals, it was a coronation. A moment where power, grace and authenticity redefined greatness. Sleep well, knowing this queen's reign is just beginning, her light blazing for the world to see. Now let's glide into the aftermath of Rio 2016, where Simone Biles isn't just a champion, she's a global icon, her name echoing from gymnasiums to talk shows. But with glory comes a new weight, one heavier than any medal. The air's buzzing with camera flashes and the hum of fame, but beneath it Simone's navigating uncharted ground. As you cozy up at 5:20 p.m. Sunday, June 22, 2025, your fans' soft whir, a calming pulse picture this young woman facing the flip side of greatness. Loving this story? Like, subscribe and comment. Where are you chilling? Vietnam's 5:20 p.m. here. Let's connect across the globe. Imagine Simone, 19, stepping off the Olympic podium into a whirlwind. She's on a national tour with her teammates flipping for screaming crowds, then hitting TV sets, Ellen, Dancing with the Stars. Her smile bright but her schedule brutal. Her memoir, Courage to Soar, flies off shelves. Endorsements stack up and magazine covers plaster her face everywhere. You can see her at a red carpet, heels wobbling still more at home on a balance beam. The world loves her, but loves a heavy crown. Every move's watched, every word dissected, and the question looms. What's next for Simone Biles? The unspoken rule is clear. She's got to keep winning, keep shining, no cracks allowed. But pulls the spotlight and it's quieter. Picture Simone at home in Houston, the hum of her parents' house familiar yet strange. For the first time in years, she's not training daily, and the stillness brings questions. Who is she without the gym? What does she want when she's already got it all? The pressure shifts. Fame's a new beast demanding perfection when her body aches and her mind needs rest. You can almost hear her thoughts late at night, wondering if she's enough outside the leotard. She's still Simone, goofy, pizza-loving, grounded by family, but the world's made her a symbol, and symbols don't get to rest. As you drift towards sleep, hold this post-Rio. Simone didn't just carry medals, she carried the world's gaze, its hunger for more. Her challenge wasn't just staying great, it was staying herself. Rest easy, knowing this isn't the end. It's where her real strength starts to show, forged in the quiet spaces between triumphs. Let's stay with Simone Biles stepping into 2018, where the world's still dazzled by her Rio glow. But a darker truth is clawing its way out. The air's heavy with the hum of gyms and the weight of secrets too long buried. Simone's not just flipping through the air now, she's flipping the script, speaking a truth that shakes the sport to its core. As you settle in at 5:21 p.m, Sunday, June 22nd, 2025, your fans hum a steady anchor picture this champion-turning warrior. Digging this? Like, subscribe and comment. Where are you at Vietnam's? 5:21 p.m. here, let's vibe across the miles. Imagine Simone 20 back in training, her body pushing through pain, 2 broken toes, a kidney stone, the kind of hurt that'd bench most. But she's not most. Picture her at the 2018 US National Championships, her leotard flashing under lights, landing moves that make the crowd gasp, her score's untouchable. Yet beneath the medals something's stirring. She's carrying more than her own weight, she's carrying a sport's shame. In a quiet moment, she posts online her words raw. I'm one of the survivors. Simone reveals she was abused by Larry Nassar, the USA gymnastics doctor who preyed on hundreds under the guise of care. You can almost hear the keyboard clatter, her heart racing as she hits send. This isn't just a confession, it's a revolution. Picture the fallout newsrooms, buzzing survivors nodding through tears, the gymnastics world reeling. Simone's the sport's face, its brightest star, and she's calling out not just Nassar, but the system USA Gymnastics, the Olympic Committee that let him thrive. You can see her in 2021 testifying before Congress, her voice steady but eyes wet, demanding accountability. She's not alone, teammates, athletes, strangers rally their voices a chorus. Her courage cracks open a silence that's choked girls for decades, sparking investigations, reforms, and a reckoning. She trains through it, all her flips now, a defiance, her medals, a middle finger to a broken machine. As you drift off, hold this: Simone's greatest leap wasn't on a vault, it was speaking out, turning pain into power. She didn't just win, she changed the game, giving voice to the voiceless. Sleep well, knowing her strength's reshaping more than gymnastics. It's reshaping what brave looks like. Now let's land in 2021 Tokyo, where the Olympics, delayed by a global pandemic, shine a spotlight on Simone Biles. The world expects her to dominate, to stack golds like she did in Rio, but she's about to show a different kind of strength, one that rewrites what courage means. The air's taut with tension, the arena humming with cheers and nerves. As you cozy up at 5:21 p.m, Sunday, June 22, 2025, your fans hum a soft cheer. Picture Simone facing her toughest moment. Loving this? Like, subscribe and comment. Where are you Vietnam's 5:21 p.m? Let's share this epic. Imagine the Tokyo Olympic Arena lights glaring, the crowd's roar a distant pulse. Simone 24 steps up for the team event, her leotard glinting, but something's off. Her vault, a move she could nail, blindfolded wobbles, her twists unravelling midair. You can see her land, her face tight, not with pain, but with a gymnast's nightmare, the twisties, a mental block where body and brain disconnect. Up there 10 feet off the mat, it's not just a miss, it's life or death. The world holds its breath as she steps aside, withdrawing from the event. Pundits gasp, critics snipe, but Simone's choice is clear: I need